What is up, everyone? I believe I am now live. I am. Oh, and the cat's just coming to mess with me, as I thought they would. Go away, cat. I'll give it a couple of minutes to let some people tune in. The debate just finished. I wrote 3 pages of notes. If you're watching this later on, if you didn't stay up for the whole fucking debate, I only just showed you 2. There we go. There's the 3rd. I hadn't picked it up. But yeah, I'll give it, if you're watching this later on, if you're tuning into this live, brilliant. G'day, how you going? I'm going to just unplug that. There we go. Yeah, if you're watching this live, g'day, how you going? Thank you for joining me. I am an Australian immigrant. I'm an American immigrant from Australia. I live in the Niagara Falls area. That's why I decided to get changed into my Bills jersey. But yeah, you can, if you're watching this on a delay, if you're watching this in my banked up live streams playlist, skip to 4 minutes, because I will start talking about the debate at the 4-minute mark. I'm just going to let some people tune in first. Wrote 3 pages of notes, kept a track of how many times people were specifically asked a question, how many times they interrupted, and how many times they were responding to something someone else said, which I think will say a lot about how each of them played, if that makes sense, how each of them did. I kept a track of the stop and frisk, how many times stop and frisk was mentioned in regards to Bloomberg. I kept a tally of how many times Barack Obama was mentioned, and I was going to keep a tally of how many times Bloomberg mentioned 9/11, but he only mentioned it once, so that was a kind of an ineffective tally. So yeah, sit tight for a minute, and I'll let some people join the chat. As I said, if you're watching this on the delay or you're just tuning in now, I'm going to start talking about the debate at about the 4-minute mark. That's in 2 minutes from now. I haven't replied to some comments on my channel in a day or two, so I'm going to go through and do that. Reply to the comments on the actual reaction videos and all sorts of stuff like that after I do this chat about the debate and all that, unless we, chat for hours and hours and all that sort of stuff. But for the people that are chiming in now, as I said, I said at the start, I'm going to wait until the 4-minute mark before I actually get into it, because I want to give people some time to join in. If this is the first time you've stumbled across me, g'day. I do reaction videos to sports, American sports for the most part. I do Australian history videos, because otherwise my Australian history playlist is effectively useless. Otherwise, my Australian history degree is effectively useless. And I do live streams where I talk about politics and my life as an American immigrant. I feel like a lot of people talk about the immigrant experience or the experience of immigration in America. Immigration is a hot topic, and it was again tonight in the debate. But not a lot of people actually know an immigrant. People, the perception of immigration in America and the perception of immigrants in America, I think, is one of Mexican descent. And immigration and the immigration laws don't just affect the southern border; they affect everyone from outside of America. You know what I mean? So it's I feel like my perspective is a unique one, and a one that is good for this particular time, if that makes sense. I feel like I'm in a good place. I am in the right place at the right time to give you guys my perspective if you're interested into it. G'day Jeffrey Freeman. Want to watch this, but I have to be up in 6 hours, so I have to go. Have fun watching. Will do, bro. Tune back in tomorrow. It'll be in my banked up playlist. I said so I said at the start of the video that I would start talking about the debate at 4 minutes, and it is the 4-minute mark now. And another comment I will read before I get into it is from CJ, who is, OG fan, one of the day one fans, has been a patron for ages as well, is a legend, CJ. So attending university helps expose people to international diversity. Unfortunately, in America, it's very expensive. That's a really good perspective, actually. That's a really good point. Most of the foreign, other than when I was traveling, obviously, because I was the foreign one, but in Australia, most of the people I met and became friends with were as a result of university, foreign nationals and foreign people. So that's a really good point. One of the reasons why I felt okay with moving overseas was because, and I'm going to put this on because I'm self-conscious about my hair. But yeah, one of the reasons I felt okay about moving overseas, and especially to America, was because of some of my Yank friends from university. You know what I mean? So it's like, and Yank is not an insult. A lot of people have come at me for calling Americans Yanks and stuff like that, but it's I don't know where the actual term Yankee came from, like the baseball team and stuff, and it's probably the same fucking thing, right? But I know for a fact that it was like a term of endearment between Australian diggers and American sold, like diggers. I don't know if you guys have the same slang here in that sense, but basically, like, you're in the fucking trench. You're the one that's digging the trenches, like the grunts of the army and the grunts of the Marines and stuff like that. It was a common thing, you know, Yanks and Aussies, and it was Yank. I mean Yank as a term of endearment, so I apologize if that came across offensively. You know, like a lot of people, it'll be the derogative, pejorative they go to, and they'll go, stupid Yanks, blah 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 blah. But you know, like, I think it's a cool term nonetheless. But let's get into it, shall we? So, as I said, I've got 3 pages of notes. I sat here diligently writing during the debate, and we're going to go through them together. I kept track of how many questions they were specifically asked by the panelists, like the people hosting the debate. I kept track of how many times they responded to somebody else on the debate stage giving them shit. And I kept track of how many times they interrupted and didn't ask for permission before they responded. So specifically being asked questions, Bloomberg was the most asked of the night, right? So Bloomberg was asked 11 questions straight out from the debate moderators. And the next closest person was Biden and Buttigieg on 8 questions that they were specifically asked directly. So 3 more than anyone else. That's over 30% of the next candidate. He got asked that many. So being the first debate that he was there for, that's sort of understandable, but also I feel like, you know, and I'll get to my closing statements on all of them at the end, don't stress, but I feel like Bloomberg was asked a lot and didn't really say much in response, right? So he was specifically asked 11 questions. Biden and Buttigieg were specifically asked 8. Warren and Sanders were specifically asked 7, and Klobuchar was specifically asked 6, right? So in terms of actually being asked and questioned by the moderators, Klobuchar was at the bottom of the pack with nearly half of the amount as Bloomberg. But in terms of responding to people and somebody had said something about them and so they could officially respond, it was Sanders who won, which is obviously, again, if you look at the spread of the debate, he was called out a lot, regardless of what the actual questions were. A lot of people had a lot to say about Bernie. Buttigieg in particular. Buttigieg and Warren fucking had their claws out, right? Buttigieg and Warren had their claws out for this debate. They were on the attack. Warren specifically was on the attack for Bloomberg for the most part. She was going after Bloomberg, and to a lesser extent, Klobuchar. Pete was going after Bloomberg and Sanders, and then to a lesser extent Klobuchar as well. I think as a unit, the big players have determined that Klobuchar is the next one to die out, and they're she's the one they're going to try and steal votes from to kick her out of the race and capitalize on her following. You know, I feel like that's basically the common consensus across everyone is, all right, she's next to drop out. Let's try and get the people who let's get her crowd to jump onto ours next, right? But yeah, let me keep going in the stats, right? So as a specific response to people, Sanders was 8, Biden was 6, Klobuchar was 6, Bloomberg and Warren were 5, and Buttigieg was 4. Okay, so I feel like Buttigieg got off pretty easy in this debate in that sense. In terms of actual physical interruptions, where they didn't ask for permission, they didn't raise their hand, they just started talking over someone. Buttigieg and Warren were way out in the lead with 8 each. Buttigieg far more demonstrative in the way he did it. Warren mostly just in response to people saying whack shit. Like she was calling out Bloomberg the most. When Bloomberg said something stupid, Warren was the one to go, think you're talking shit there, bro. But Buttigieg went right on the attack about that's not true, this isn't true, all that sort of stuff. And I feel like he was discernibly trying to make his presence felt in the debate. And he did, you know, like I feel like if there's a winner of this debate, if I was to call a winner of the debate, that I think it's probably either Warren or Pete, like Buttigieg. But yeah, I'll get into it more. Stop and frisk was spoken about 6 times. Obama was spoken about 13 times. And I was going to keep a tally of how many times 9/11 was spoken about, because in his opening statement, Bloomberg mentioned it twice, but it only happened that time. So I thought it was going to be like, you know, how Biden, every single time he talks, it feels like he's trying to ride on the coattails of Obama. And all the things that Obama did, because, you know, oh, well, in our campaign, we did this, and in our presidency, we did this. And it's like, that wasn't yours, champ. Stop trying to take credit for what you didn't do. But anyway, I'll get to the notes, and then I'll come back to broader points about the maths and stuff. I'll read some more comments first, though. The word Yankee apparently comes from a Dutch nickname for John. That's weird. In the States, it refers to Northerners, Northeast in the North versus South dichotomy stemming from the Civil War. That makes sense, actually. That makes sense. Bernie is the strongest candidate, also wants to make public uni free by increasing Wall Street taxes. That'd be nice, wouldn't it? Debates are a joke, by the way. Cool of you to break it down like this. Yeah, debates, to be honest with you, broadly speaking, it seemed like they were all just getting their talking points out. Each of them had their canned statements that they needed to get out. Each of them had their planned digs that they were going to make into somebody else. You know, they all had their you know, the what was I going to say? They all had their like planned statements of, oh, I'm going to attack this guy and respond to whatever he has to say in response to my attack. I'm going to attack this chick. I'm going to make these positive statements. And it seemed very like, you know, like the laugh track on Big Bang Theory, you know, how Big Bang Theory isn't as funny a show as it actually is written because of the canned laughter making it fucking weird and like, I don't want to be told when to laugh, right? And it's the same thing is 100%. Like, I think I've got it in the notes here somewhere, but Klobuchar called out Buttigieg for it at one point, where she was like, you're really good at memorizing. Yeah, no, you've memorized some good talking points, blah, 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 but let's talk about something that actually matters. And that was one of my quotes in the debate. You know, I was like, fucking A, you know, like she got smashed for like 10 solid minutes from everyone on the debate stage except for Warren, including the fucking, I don't know what her name was. Like, I think she was Mexican. She spoke with a thick Mexican accent, and all her questions were about Mexico and Mexican relations, right? So apologies if that's offensive. But, like, literally, she got absolutely smashed, right, by fucking everyone. Klobuchar did, because she couldn't remember in one interview last week who the president of Mexico was, right? I've fucking traveled all around the world, you know, like there's one or two continents I haven't been on. I couldn't fucking name you the president of the country I was in last week. Like, well, I mean, I could because it's Trump. I haven't been anywhere other than America, you know, for the last little while, but you know what I mean, right? Like, it's real easy to forget a name when you're in an interview, but you know, she's got a good track record on trade, and I felt everyone was being a bit harsh on her there because of the canned statements and the canned responses that were planned, right? But I'm going to go through my notes just because, like, I'm going to, you know, there'll be talking points that I can stop and get through. But the very first thing I wanted to say was Bernie mentioned stop and frisk within the first 30 seconds, right? So the very first 30 seconds of the debate, Bernie had already mentioned stop and frisk, which I was like, I was prepared that it was going to be a big talking point and that everyone was going to have a crack at Bloomberg about A, the fact he's a billionaire, B, the fact that he was stop and frisk, and C, the fact that he helped fund George Bush, right? Like he was a major campaign contributor to George Bush. And he was a major campaign contributor to what's his name? Fucking the guy that went up against Obama, McCain. And like he's just because he's always donated to both sides, people from both sides, that doesn't necessarily mean he's always been on the Democratic Party side, if that makes sense. When you have enough money to give money to everyone just so you can say I gave you money at some point, like it's a bit disingenuous. Bloomberg was real strong. Like he wasn't. I mean, there was a point where it became evident that he didn't know who everyone on the fucking stage was, right? And like he kept referring to people by name, but then he like tripped himself up and mentioned, the senator to my left, and Elizabeth Warren quite rightly called him out and was like, "Yeah, my name's Elizabeth," which drew a ooh from the crowd, which I thought was, you know, potentially because it was the only genuine off the cuff statement of the night, or one of them, right? But yeah, he came out pretty strongly against Sanders, and he came out and said I can see there's comments coming in, and I will get to them, I promise, but I'm going to try and get through my notes first. He said, you know, Sanders has no chance whatsoever to beat Trump. Those were pretty much his opening statements. In his first question, he basically said that Sanders has absolutely no chance to beat Trump. No chance whatsoever were his exact words. And he kept, whenever he was brought upon to discuss anything, even vaguely in relation to Bernie, he would say, nah, that like we cannot possibly put Bernie up to defeat Trump because we'll lose to Trump. Bernie's not the answer. Pretty much anyone else on the stage don't have Bernie. That was Bloomberg's approach. Like, obviously he wants to be the guy, but his main purpose for being is for Bernie not to be the guy, right? And that was evident from his very first question all the way through to his closing statement. He's just not a fan of Bernie. He's not a fan of democratic socialism. He's a billionaire and he wants the system to stay the same because he feels like other people could experience the same wealth as he has if the system doesn't change, if that makes sense. Warren came out hard. Like, she was super aggressive tonight. I've watched all of the debates, and this debate was her most like rah-rah sort of debate. You know, she had her claws out. She was very, very keen to make her presence felt. You know, like as I said, in the interruptions, she didn't respond. She didn't interrupt. She only interrupted. Oh wait, no, sorry. I was just reading standards just then. She interrupted more than anyone else by a far way. Like, it was 8. Well, her and Buttigieg, but I'll get to him as well. But yeah, she came out hard, and she interrupted Bloomberg in his opening statements, and said, we shouldn't be trading one arrogant billionaire for the other in regards to Trump to Bloomberg, which I think is a very interesting, and it was a very powerful statement to make. Just as Bloomberg, like, she wasn't even going to let him finish his first fucking answer. She was like, "Nah, bro, you ain't it," you know. And so I thought that was interesting, considering like my biggest criticism of Warren over the last little while has been that she's just basically a cup of water, you know, like she's the free app version of the 99-cent Hillary Clinton app. You know what I mean? Like, she's a bit boring. She doesn't get fiery when she needs to. But this debate, she impressed me with how fiery she got when she needed to. You know, I'm still not by any stretch of the imagination jumping off the Sanders bandwagon. But Warren impressed me in this debate, right? And she mentioned again in that opening, like, and she wasn't responding to anything he'd said or anything like that. She straight up interrupted him in his opening question. Nobody had asked her anything. She interrupted, and it was a power move. And she mentioned hiding behind TV ads and all that sort of stuff. And yeah, I liked how she came at Bloomberg. And Bloomberg's perspective was, well, look, not only do we have to beat Trump, but we have to have someone who knows what they're doing once they get there. And I think that was a vaguely veiled dig at Buttigieg or Klobuchar or someone. Like, I feel like his consultants had told him that was a line that was going to work, but maybe he just didn't get it out right or something. He didn't target it right or something like that. I don't know. But it was basically like he was saying, oh, well, we need someone who's led before, you know, and that was when he mentioned 9/11 because he was the mayor of New York when that happened. But yeah, he rubbed me up the wrong way as well. But I expect you all know why. To begin with, I'm not a Bloomberg fan. You know, I tend to sort of agree with the Warren statement of, you know, the way to beat one arrogant billionaire isn't to trade him out for another one, you know. But that's I'll get to that as well. Where are we? Buttigieg makes claim for the middle. Yeah, so he was real strong. Buttigieg came out very strongly for the fact that, like, it was in his opening statement. He mentioned it at some point while responding. G'day Xander. I just saw someone saying what's up. But yeah, no, he like Buttigieg made a claim for the middle. All right. So in his opening statement, in his middle, like whenever he had a response to either Sanders or Bloomberg, and in his closing statement, he said words to the effect of, "We can't have Democratic voters either. We can't give them the polarizing nature of democratic socialist or the status quo." Like, he was of the belief that, you know, things do need to change, and he wants people to change, but that too much change is scary. Which, you know, if you've watched a bunch of my videos, any historian would agree with you and agree with that hard. But also, there's, you know, all you got to do is look at the swings from left to right in global politics and in American politics specifically as well. You know, the swings from left to right broadly over half a generation or so, swinging back to left, back to right, back to left, back to right. We're due, right, for a pretty significant shift. Like the years after Reagan and the things that happened after Reagan came in were drastic change and quick change, and they might need to be the same for Trump. Like, again, not trying to take a like a everything will be fine sort of stance, but like it's ebbs and flows, right? And I said when Obama got elected, maybe that means we get Bernie in 2024, right? Or 2020. That was a Freudian slip. Like it's if you go far enough one way, you need to be able to. You're gonna go far enough the other way as well, because most people don't vote for a person; they vote against a person. And so it's that's what it comes down to, I think. Not Bernie, sorry, Pete. I'm going to say Pete instead of Buttigieg, because I don't even know if I'm pronouncing that right. But Pete's point was we can't have the populace of the Democratic Party perceiving that they are either the options are either a democratic socialism or the status quo, that there needs to be another option. And I feel like he probably won a few votes with that. And because he came out super aggressively, as I said at the start, it was probably the debate for mine was either his or Warren's in terms of winning it. Like one of those two won the debate for me tonight. And he won it by, with his canned talking points of, well, we need to reach people in the middle. I feel like he's the middle candidate that is going to last the distance. I feel like it'll be Bloomberg because he's bankrolling his, like he's shooting up in the polls as he shoots up with his ads. Like he gets his ads straight directly into our veins, no matter what fucking thing we're watching, right? Like we have a drip of Bloomberg ads. If there's advertising on whatever platform you're using, you're seeing Michael Bloomberg ads, right? So he'll be there till the end because he can afford to be. And I think Sanders will be there till the end because he's who the Democratic Party, who people want to be the Democratic Party's candidate, even if the Democratic Party don't want him to be. I think, Pete said at one point when talking about Bloomberg and about Sanders, like that the Democratic Party and the people of the Democratic Party want an actual Democrat to be the person that's in charge. And he's just like I feel like he did well in this debate. Don't get me wrong. I feel like he did well in this debate and he'll be happy with his performance, but he just rubs me up the wrong way, right? Like he looks, and I know we shouldn't be talking about looks and everything like that, but he looks untrustworthy, like he's just not he's not a genuine guy. It's like he's practiced everything. Those sorts of people that you go and you hang out with and they say a joke, but you can tell that they've been fucking working on that joke for weeks and they just needed an audience for it to land. And now you were in the audience for them. That's what I feel like whenever fucking Pete talks, right? Like he just feels so rehearsed and disingenuous. I just want to shake him and be like, break character for a second, bro. Show me who you actually are, And that's not cool, man. Tony Macaroni, like homophobia is like so 1960. Go back to there, bro. There's a lot of things that we can talk about Pete for, and he's a scummy, not scummy. I don't know. He's probably a really good dude, like he seems disingenuous. His talking points are sometimes demonstrative when they don't need to be, but we really, really don't need to be homophobic. Like it's fucking 2020, bro. It's the current year, as some might say, But anyway, we're going to move on so we don't get harped into that too much. But he made a claim for the middle. Warren came out hard against Bloomberg for the black vote. Like she was pretty much every time he spoke, she was talking about minorities and what he's done to mess up minorities. You know what I mean? And there was the stop and frisk, and there was this real tense moment as well where even Biden got involved and jumped on Warren's back, like in a like patting her on the back sort of thing. I think the point, and just bear with me, Tony Macaroni, the point isn't about who you harass equally. It's about what sections of community get harassed by the broader public. And that section of the community literally was allowed, like there's so many horrible things that has been allowed to them that when we're talking and we're having public discourse like this, saying things like what you just said about people being tricky fellas in such a in such a collectivist groupthink kind of way shows your ignorance, and also brings the discussion down back, to brings the discussion away from what we actually want to talk about. So it's not about how you it's not about how you Bro, like I'm going to stop engaging with you in the comments now, hey, because I feel like you are just a professional troll. Like if you want to actually engage in the comments and be civil and be respectable, then I'll respect you and I will, be civil back. But making comments like that last one you just made about who you can't make fun of and stuff, that's just uncalled for, bro. And I'm going to get back to it now. But anyway, yeah, Warren came out hard against Bloomberg, and she came out hard against Bloomberg about the fact that he was a billionaire, about the fact that stop and frisk was him, and about the fact that he was, there were non-disclosure agreements, so confidentiality agreements with numerous unknown amounts of women that had worked for him previously. And there was a real tense moment where she was like, well, you're on national television. You can tell them that their confidentiality agreements don't mean anything now. If you want to let them talk about this presidential campaigner, then please do, sort of thing. And he was like, oh, I don't know. And Biden saw a chance to jump in and was like, yeah, why don't you do that, bro? On national television, you know what a confidentiality agreement is. If you feel like they, and he was like, oh, there are some. And Warren's like, how many some? Kept interrupting him, going, let's confirm how many is some. And I was just like, I'm not a Warren fan, but fuck me, I was in that moment. Like, that was such a good call, and she held him to account so well. And it was like, man, that's like, previously, up until this debate, if you'd said to me, all right, Trump versus Klobuchar, who do you vote for? Probably Klobuchar. Trump versus Pete, who do you vote for? Probably Trump. Trump versus Sanders, who do you vote for? Sanders. Trump versus Bloomberg, who do you vote for? Trump. Trump versus, and I mean that, legitimately. Bloomberg's got, triple the assault allegations that Trump has. He's a racist motherfucker with, history of being a racist motherfucker. Bloomberg is not the answer to Trump. He is the natural evolution of Trump. If Trump had an astute political and business mind, he'd be Bloomberg. He's just not smart enough to be that conniving and successful. That's all it is, right? But if you'd thrown up pretty much any of the Democratic candidates up against Trump, I would have voted probably for the Democratic candidate, except for Pete, except for Biden, and except for Warren at the start of this debate. But by the end of the debate, she's boosted herself up above Trump for me. I'd vote for Warren over Trump now, because I feel like she showed more of, the aggro, the guttural feel it anger, that you actually are angry about something and you're responding because that pissed you off. She showed more of that to me than any other candidate on the stage tonight. She was the most genuine there, I think, which is not something I would have ever said about her before. As I said, the talking point I generally have for Elizabeth Warren is that she's the free app version of the 99-cent Hillary Clinton app, But tonight, I'd have paid $2.99 for that app. You know what I mean? She was better than Clinton for me tonight. But I'll keep moving on, because she nailed him on that point, and it deserved a good talking point, because she did absolutely hammer him strong on the, well, how many some? No, we won't move on yet. How many some, And yeah, that was cool. For the most part, for the first 3/4 of the debate, whenever Amy Klobuchar spoke, I pretty much tuned out, right? Because she just has this, and I feel bad, and it's almost definitely because of where she's from and her accent, but she just has a very go-to-sleepable noise that comes out of her face. You know what I mean? She's just not a very... there wouldn't be many spikes, when I was a kid, I had this stereo that had yellow and red beads that would jump with the beat of the music and stuff, and it would change depending on the her beads would not be jumping up anywhere. They just flat. That it sounds like the audio's been mastered too much on her fucking language. You know what I mean? She's just flat and staticky when she talks, and she wasn't really emotional about anything or passionate about anything until she got absolutely slammed for not knowing who the president of Mexico was, right? And I feel like that was a bit of a harsh line of questioning, if I'm honest, right? Obviously it meant a lot to the chick that asked it, and it meant a lot to what was going on there. But it's it took almost the whole the stage, other than Elizabeth Warren, who did come into bat for her, again, commendably, who basically just said, so she forgot a name, big deal. She's got a track record of trade and of actual important things that have the between America and Mexico, and she's been a part of that sort of thing. So maybe we cut her some slack, and that was, again, commendable from Warren as well. One of the reasons why I think she was one of the big winners from this debate. But it took Klobuchar being fucking reamed over that by that moderator with a cross to bear before she became lively in the debate. Like after that, she hadn't interrupted anyone up until then. She interrupted someone once in the entire debate, and it was with Pete afterwards because Pete kept basically telling her she was useless. And like he laid the fucking boot in, right? Like he was kicking her while she was down. He was and that's what he reminds me of, actually. He's the guy, right? And any male over the age of 25 will be able to pinpoint the one that I'm talking about. He's the one that no matter like where you were at whatever time, he's the one that had maybe one or too many drinks, and he got lippy because he thought his friends would back him up, right? And he was the one that talked heaps of shit because he knew his friends would back him up, and he was in a crowd of people. But I guarantee you he wouldn't have said that shit to her if he was sitting with her one-on-one. It was because they were on a fucking national stage that he felt, I can make a fool out of you here. And she basically, you could tell that she was upset by it, and she got a bit like, oh, well, like, you're basically calling me dumb. Why don't you just outright say I'm dumb, right? Which was I felt for her in that moment, like I genuinely felt bad for her because you could see that she could see everything falling behind and everything falling away from her or for her. You know what I mean? But what was that? Yeah, there was a really good Buttigieg quote in regards to making a claim for the middle, which was let's put forward somebody who is a Democrat. We don't want it to be burn the party down versus buy it out, which I thought was a really good 10-word answer that his team definitely worked on for weeks on end to bust out as soon as Bloomberg got onto the stage, because that's a really good Bloomberg or Sanders. We don't want it just to be them. If you're not one of those extremes, come and vote for me. It's a real good 10-word answer, right? And there's a good clip from West Wing that I will put into my must-see playlist after this. I'll do it now while we're talking so I don't forget. About 10-word answers and how 10-word answers can kill you in political campaigns, right? Martin Sheen, fucking, one of the best things he ever produced, if you don't count, like Emilio, because Emilio's mad. Anyone that doesn't know, Emilio Estevez is Charlie Sheen's brother and Martin Sheen's son, but he didn't want to, there we go. But bear with me. 10-word answers, West Wing. I'm going to add it now, because it's a really good. I learned most of my knowledge from American politics, other than from paying attention to politics while I've been here. Learned most of my knowledge of how the system works and what the structure of government is here in America. I learned through binge watching West Wing on some flights. And I've got to say, fucking President Bartlett, that'd be sick. I hear he was based on Clinton, but like if Clinton was actually as cool as his speeches made him out to be, like liberally wise, like we all know now, like fucking 30 years later, that Clinton was actually a bit of a weird cunt, like hung out with his mate Epstein and Prince Andrew a fair bit and all that sort of stuff. But I just saw in my comments, Democratic Party is due for a controlled burn. Fuck, that is a good pun. That is good. That is clever. I like that. He should run with that. Like that's mad. But yeah, no, I did think the line of, we've got to beat Trump, and the only way we're going to do that, is not by burning the party down versus buying it out. And I thought that was a really good line anyway. Warren came hard against Bloomberg for the black vote and for I've been through that. Yeah, tune out when Klobuchar speaks. Been through that. Warren says Buttigieg doesn't have. Oh yeah, that was a thing on universal healthcare, right? So on universal healthcare, they were talking. Like everyone was having their little sound bites and having their little talk outs, but Warren came out slapping hard when, at one point early on, she was talking real fierce and she pretty much name checked everyone, right? Like everyone on stage. She was basically like, well, Bloomberg doesn't matter, but everyone else, this is their policy and this is this policy and this is this policy. Said that Pete didn't have a plan and that Klobuchar's plan was basically a post-it note that said insert plan here. I felt bad for Klobuchar again because I just feel like she doesn't hit right for me, but maybe she does for all the mums of Middle America or something. I don't fucking know. But she responded to that with, oh, well, Post-its were invented in my state. It's like, oh, babe. Oh, that's not that wasn't the point of that statement. Like, you needed to come out harder against that. Come on, Dal. But anyway, she's doing far better than I ever would. So, it is what it is. But it was like I felt bad for her in that instance as well, because I was just like, man, you got literally hit for a home run, and then the kid that caught you decided to throw you out, like instead of taking you home for a souvenir. Post-its were invented in my state. I feel like there's a Romy and Michelle's high school reunion joke that could be made there about post-its and Klobuchar. Like, if you're a meme merchant that is out there at the moment and watching me currently, 100% you should make a meme about Klobuchar, Romy and Michelle's high school reunion, and post-its. That's a movie with, what's her name? Fuck, what was the chick's name? The one from Friends, the ditzy one in Friends, plays Phoebe. I think she's in Romy and Michelle's high school reunion, isn't she? She's like one of them. Anyway, but yeah. Anyway, I'll move on. Getting away from my Lisa Kudrow is the person. You are right. Many comments. Was she in Romy and Michelle's high school reunion, or am I conflating my loopy blonde white girls? I think she was. Yeah, cool. Anyway, so yeah, Warren says Pete doesn't have a plan. Klobuchar has a post-it saying insert plan here, and post-its were invented in my state. Come on, Dale. Biden was hardly there. Like in the first half of the debate, right? So I kept this tally, and I should have kept it in the first three quarters because there were two breaks, right? Before the first break, Biden had been asked one question. He hadn't responded to anyone about anything, and he hadn't interrupted at all. For the first third of the debate, Biden just wasn't fucking there. He may as well have not been standing on stage, right? He came out, he finished strong, and I feel like that might have been a deliberate ploy by the moderators, because like Sanders had a whole bunch of questions in the first half, but not in the second half. And it's anyone that's studied politics knows that the second half of the debate is the bit that people remember most. You remember what happens at the very beginning and at the very end, but not so much in the middle. And I feel like Sanders got most of his questions in the middle, as did Warren. Klobuchar, it was what it was. But yeah, I feel like, again, like every time Biden spoke, it was, oh well, Obama did this. It's like, yeah, well, Obama's not in this campaign, dickhead. Your name's Joe Biden, not Barack Obama. But yeah, anyway, so Biden was hardly there, and he was criticizing Bloomberg when he was, because Bloomberg was funding his direct competitors when he was running for president, like the first or the second or however many times he's done it. When he was running and became Barack's vice president, Bloomberg was bankrolling their opposition and was funding the opposition's campaign, right? He was giving money to the Democratic Party, but he was giving money individually to the people that were going up against Obama and Biden. Perfectly valid criticism on Biden's part to make. It's just that still doesn't endear him to voters. You know what I mean? I feel like there can be criticisms that are made, right? Criticisms can be made in one of two ways. You can make a criticism of a person to make them look bad, or you can make a criticism of a person to make yourself look better. And I don't think Biden gave out any of the make yourself look better criticisms. He was a very, very strong towards the end of the debate on criticisms surrounding Bernie and about Bloomberg, but he didn't really, like, he basically just went, nah, you're all talking shit. I'm Joe Biden, elect me. Which isn't enough for me personally, but it is what it is. Bloomberg was interesting, right? Because he stayed quiet for most of the debate, unless anyone was like specifically asking him a question or specifically said anything about him. He mostly just shrugged off, everyone. He was the easy target. He was the low hanging fruit. He was the low hanging fruit, right? He was the easy target for everyone, and he mostly just let it all wash off his back. Except he started talking about halfway through the debate, right? He started talking about something, and Biden went to interrupt him, and he was like, I'm talking. And Biden just shut up and was like, whoop. And it was like, oh, all right, I guess I'll let you talk. And it was a real sign of Biden knowing that Bloomberg was going to fund his campaign if he won anyway. So he was like, oh, I'll be quiet and let daddy talk, right? And it was the funniest moment, because it sucked the power out of Joe Biden in that moment, but it also showed that those were just two old men being old men while the rest of us wanted to actually talk about shit and get shit done. It was a moment where you can put them both in the bin, I think, not just where you realize that Biden was perfectly fine to shut up when he was told to shut up, basically. Bloomberg, what else? Basically his stance on stop and frisk. He was asked once about it directly. heaps of people mentioned it. As I said, it was mentioned 6 times across the 2-hour debate or whatever. And he, in effect, he had one question from the actual moderators of the debate who were like, "Yo, stop and frisk is a talking point. Can you justify it?" And he basically came out and said, "Oh, well, if you look at the numbers, crime dropped." And it was like he was trying to say, "Oh, well, yeah, maybe the manner in which they did it was good. Maybe the manner in which they did it was really bad, but it still resulted in good numbers," which is effectively saying, well, a means, if it's a means to an end, if the ends justifies the means, right? Which let's just be frank, right? And I know, like, you're not allowed to mention the Nazis in any political discussion because it just, it's Godwin's law. You can't then talk or anything like that, right? But it's like legitimately, the means justify the ends was their defense at Nuremberg. Was a lot of their defenses at Nuremberg, like it was, I was just doing my job, or, oh, well, we got all these things built and all this medical research done and all that sort of stuff. So maybe the means justify the ends. Like, no, bro, that's like fucking 1940 called and it wants its defense back. It wasn't a defense then, like the ends doesn't justify. The end doesn't justify the means. It just doesn't. And stop and frisk was racist from the get-go, as Elizabeth Warren pointed out. And it was specifically intended to be racist from the get-go. It wasn't an accidental pitfall of the system. It worked exactly as it needed to. You know what I mean? But yeah, it's interesting in my sense. That he thought that the best defense against stop and frisk was to fucking defend stop and frisk as opposed to apologize for it. I thought that was odd. Klobuchar tried to come out and get the black vote, saying she was not anti-PO people of color and stuff like that, but she didn't really do a good job of it. Sanders, I thought, and again, Bloomberg tried to say something about. I see there's a climate change debate in my comment section, and again, I will come back to you at the end of this. Climate change is definitely real. We'll get to this we'll get to that at the end of the discussion. It's absolutely real, and if you don't think it is, you need to stop watching. You need to broaden your horizons and broaden your network of knowledge and places that you get knowledge from, because there's only 1 or 2 specified locations in the media of this country that are still pushing the fact that climate change doesn't exist. And if you're one of the people that is also pushing that, then it's pretty obvious where you get your news media from and where you get your information from. And it's time for an update, bro, because I'm sure you're a smarter person than those talking points. But yeah, I'll as I said, I'll get to the comments once I've finished my notes. We're not even off page 1 of page 3 yet. Bloomberg came up against Sanders to be like Sanders was asked about his health, and Sanders was like, "Yeah, I've got 2 stents. Like, I'm pretty sure." Like, Bloomberg, "Hey, you've got 2 stents as well, haven't you?" And Bloomberg was like, "Yeah, I got mine 25 years ago," as if that wasn't like Sanders's point. Like, yeah, I know you did 25 years ago. I only got them like 6 months ago. I reckon I'll be fine. Like, that's the point I'm making, dickhead. Which I thought was super interesting, and it would have been cooler if somebody could just say that on the stage. Like, there were so many facial expressions, like the amount of come on mans from Joe Biden. Like, he's a smug cunt, isn't he? Like, he just is. He's a fuck. Sorry, I dropped a C-bomb. This video is going to be demonetized. Join my Patreon. Help me out. Give me some funds so it's not. So it doesn't matter when it is. But, like, he is a fucking smug cunt. Like, you look at him and you like, even he knows he's being smug. You know what I mean? He's just like, come on, man. Like, don't say anything. Just shrug off and disregard the other person saying it. That'll work for you, Joe. But anyway, Sanders said to Bloomberg, you've got 2 stents, and Bloomberg was like, yeah, 25 years ago. And it was like the amount of facial expressions of that was the point, dickhead, in the debate was like, yeah, it was interesting. It was interesting. But where are we now? Bloomberg was like, I can't go to TurboTax. That people asked him about if he was going to release his tax returns and if he was going to release his financial statements and everything. And his basic argument for why he hasn't done it yet is because he's so rich and spends so much money that it's hard to keep track of, which if you're trying to endear yourself to the little man, probably isn't the best way to go from my perspective. But at the same time, like he does have his finger in a lot of fucking pies. So I sort of get that, like the one man isn't going to be able to just go, all right, this is everything I do, because he's got people that worry about that, because he can afford to fucking pay people that worry about that, And so now he's waiting for the various people. One might even say you could relate someone like Bloomberg as a billionaire with his various corporations, with their various umbrella corporations, with their various different small businesses that have been bought out across the spectrum and all of that sort of stuff, right? That he has a very similar structural arrangement to the one of the British monarchy, with all the Commonwealth nations and all that sort of stuff. And I guarantee you the Queen wouldn't be able to tell you the ins and outs of the Australian budget or the Canadian budget or the fucking, I don't know, I was about to say Hawaiian, but they gave that to you guys. Like one of the other fucking countries, New Zealand, there we go. There's another one off the top of my head, like she wouldn't be able to list and rattle off those at any given moment. She would have to get her people to collate the data. And I get that. And I completely understand his perspective on, I have to get people to collate the data. And his point was, I've only been in this campaign for 10 weeks. They've all been in it for 2 years, which again was a fucking, like, you're shooting yourself in the foot when you say that sort of shit, bro. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I've only been interested in this for 5 minutes, but these guys have all been campaigning for the better part of their lives. You should vote for me. Fucking what, bro? Like, what point are you even making? But yeah, he said something like, I can't just go to TurboTax. And I presume TurboTax is a free or cheap like community run. Like the message I got from that was that TurboTax is a cheap way of getting your tax real quick. You go to TurboTax and you tell them what your tax return is going to be. They give you the money and do your tax return and like take the money out of it. I presume we have similar services to that in Australia. So I presume that's what it was. And I feel like Klobuchar's maybe one good line of the night, only good line of the night. Yeah, free app. There we go. It's like it's a free app. Bloomberg said, oh, well, I can't just use the free app. Like, I earn so much money, right? Which, again, whose vote are you gaining with that, man? But, yeah, Klobuchar, with her one line of the night that I thought was really good and really interesting, it was, I'm just looking at my husband in the front row who's shaking his head. He does our taxes, and, we do use TurboTax, which I thought was fucking, that would have endeared herself more to the common man. And when I say the common man, I don't just mean men. There was once a time when man stood for humanity. It's the three letters in the middle of that word. But I understand that these days it's not. But like there was one, I don't think the common person is going to be endeared to Bloomberg by any of the things he said in this debate. But I feel like they may have from that one line for Klobuchar. Where are we? Yeah, Bloomberg basically has a bunch of grab 'em by the pussies that'll come out of the woodworks if he gets the nomination. In essence, that was Warren's point. Was he has a bunch of women that he's paid to shut up, and there's probably not enough money in the world to shut up when the person you've shut up about is running for president, as we learned when Trump ran for president. So there's that. Oh, and yeah, Bloomberg, like Warren smashed Bloomberg as well. We've just moved on from the first page out of 3, but he literally, like she said, she said that his response to the whole confidentiality agreements and everything was that, oh, I'm nice to some women, and she straight out called him out on stage on that as well. And I was really interested in that and the way the crowd reacted to it, because there was a bit of a like. Like when you say, like, if you're in a stand-up comedy lounge and you say, you have a fucking dead baby joke or a Holocaust joke or something like that, and there's like the little murmuring of like, oh, that was funny, but he shouldn't have said that, right? That sort of thing. And it's like, I love all I keep seeing is okay, Tony, which is funny. Like clearly there are people going into bat about climate change, and I probably don't need to. So thanks for that in the comments section. You guys are mad. I will read all of these comments before I sign off the live chat, though. Don't worry. But yeah, where was I? What was I just saying? So I've just moved on to Bloomberg and Warren. Like there was that little, should she have said that? That was funny, sort of fervor when she was like, okay, so he's outright said that he's not going to release the confidentiality agreements. What I want you all to know here, his answer was basically, I've been nice to some women, right? And it was just the whole crowd had this weird reaction to it because that's what his answer was. That she had just reworded his answer, but everyone else was like, "Oh, can she say that?" Like we don't have an issue with the dude who has confidentiality agreements about people who worked for him about him being a scummy, sexist dude. But we do have issues with Elizabeth Warren saying, "Oh, he basically just said he doesn't care about this thing," right? Like it was weird for me. But anyway, yeah, like that was one of the things. I had a quote on this page that I was trying to remember from that page. But his exact words were, "So they didn't like some jokes I made," right? So some people didn't like some jokes I made, and Warren was like, "Well, how many? Some? Like, can you tell us how many it is? You know, like it's come on, man, how many? Some, right?" And it's like, well, maybe we want our president to be nice to all, not just some women. You know, an inherent bias against them probably isn't going to get you elected. You know what I mean? Warren went hard against Bloomberg confidentiality agreements. I wrote that down as well. Biden praises Mayor Pete on transparency. Goes hard on releases of confidentiality agreements as well. So that was the one time Biden piped up in the first third of the debate was when Mayor Pete had come out about transparency and he was like, "I want this to be transparent. I want everything to be transparent. Everyone should be transparent." And interesting thing I learned tonight was that Mayor Pete is the only one on that stage that's not a millionaire. What did Amy Klobuchar do to become a fucking millionaire? Like she just, it always strikes me as strange when people that I like, and this is gonna definitely sound conceited. 100% it does, and I acknowledge that, but I make no apologies for it, right? When I see people who I view to be of lower intellect than myself, right? It annoys me when they have more money than I do. Because I'm like, how? How did you do that? Why did you do that? What the fuck's going on? Like how in a world where I am begging randoms on YouTube to join my Patreon, how is she running for president? Really? Like how does she have the fucking money? But anyway, that's she's funny to listen to. I like her. She seems harmless. She's she makes a couple of interesting jokes and stuff, and she's interesting. You know what I mean? She's post-its were invented in her state, so like that's a thing. But yeah, Mayor Pete went hard on yeah, like I just saw another, in the scrolling and everything. She's a funny auntie. She is. She reminds me of like I have this one auntie, right? And my uncle, her husband, might actually watch this. He's my great uncle. He's my mum's uncle. His name's Dion. We had a great many political debates when I lived at home in Australia, and he and I literally would never see eye to eye, because even though he was a card carrying socialist in his youth when he was my age. And I mean that by card carrying, like he was a member of the Victorian Socialist Party. He ran their fucking meetings. He was a secretary for them. And he's now a Trump supporting, like conservative party voting, like he's a good dude and I love him to bits. He's my great uncle, you know what I mean? But he's a conservative old white man, and that's what happens when you are a business owner of an antiques shop for decades and decades, and you benefit from the socialist-ish policies of Ben Chifley and John Curtin before they were repealed by people like Robert Menzies and John Howard. Like, you know what I mean? Like we couldn't see eye to eye, even in a staring contest, basically. But his wife was just the little doty sort of like, she's amazing, and they're both amazing people. Don't get me wrong. Like I am one of the people. It seems to be a dying breed these days that we can disagree on literally everything in politics, and I'll probably still have a beer with you. Like, I mean, if you're a homophobe or you're a racist or you're a sexist, like all the big isms, we're not going to get along with. But like generally speaking, I am more on the left side of things and he's more on the right side of things, and his wife is like makes the fucking Christmas pudding every year for the wider family, for everyone, and puts the little coins in it and shit. Like Klobuchar reminds me of her. And yeah, it's just like it's interesting. She's interesting. But yeah, like I feel like, and I just clocked the comments again like this. They're all scrolling, and I see it one every now and then, and I will look at the majority. Don't stress at the end of the stream. But I just saw one that said, "I love a good political debate." From this one's from Xander Case. Is it Xander? It is Xander. That's what the X is. It's like a Z noise, right? In it, like Xander short for Alexander, I presume. Xander Case or Casey or whatever. Like I love a good political debate as long as it doesn't descend into arguing and yelling. Unfortunately, that's hard to find. Absolutely, like if you were like, I mean, I've you can check out a bunch of my live streams. Mostly, I'm about civil discourse and stuff. If you come into it talking about how people need to forgive their parents, as some fuckwit did when we were talking about gun control the other day. Like if you come in from a position of obvious supposed moral authority, if I can tell from the way you're trying to discuss with me politics with me that you think I'm better than you, I'm not going to chat with you. If as long as we're both equal contributors to the discussion and we both acknowledge what the other people are saying and answer the questions that are being asked, I'm not interested in talking to you about what I think and then hearing what you think and then telling you what I think again without anyone changing it. You know what I mean? And oh wow, your name's actually Xander. That's cool. I've never met someone that's like, not that this is meeting, but you know what I mean. I've never met someone named Xander that it wasn't short for Alexander. That's cool though. That's cool. That's mad. I like that name. That's a cool name. We're having a boy. I'm going to put that in the maybe pile. I'm pretty sure we've already decided on what we're going to call it, but Xander is a nice name, so I'm going to put that in the maybe pile. But yeah, I forgot what I was talking about because civil discourse I'm happy to have, and I'm happy to have a chat and agreeing to disagree. Like people can agree to disagree, and I can agree to a certain level. I do get heated and I do get angry at some points. But it's generally only when faced with ultimate ignorance and people not willing to budge, even though I know and can tell they're intelligent people that are refusing to see logic because it fits into their argument. I'm sure there's a name for that, like the psychological like confirmation bias, but within a conversation. You know what I mean? But anyway, I'm gonna come back to the debate, right? Klobuchar was kind of funny. I don't take her seriously, but she's fun. She got emotional when Pete came after her. Pete is a smug cunt. Like I actually wrote that in the notes. I think I said that about Biden before. But Pete he has this he carries himself in such a way that he's like, oh well, you say 10 and he says 1, but I'm gonna say 5, and the majority of Americans think somewhere between 3 and 7. So they should vote for my 5, like as if he's some fucking school teacher telling me off for smoking a cigarette out the back of the fucking J block or something, He just rubs me up the wrong way. Warren came to defend Klobuchar. That was really cool. We spoke about that before. Klobuchar was noticeably rocked by the Mexico talk, right? Absolutely noticeably rocked by it. Didn't like being called out by the debate moderator, didn't like being hassled by the debate moderator because she followed up 2 or 3 times with it as well. Like, I don't know who that chick is, but she was guaranteed trying to fucking make a name for herself with that line of questioning and hitting up against the easy target in Klobuchar in that sense. Like, I don't know who that journalist is, but she's trying to be Rachel Maddow, get her own Maddow, try and get her own fucking podcast or something, you know what I mean? But wasn't a fan of her or her line of questioning or the different thing, like at all. She was my least favorite moderator of the debate. That chick that kept towing the Mexican line with Klobuchar. Where are we? Biden woke up for the final question before the break and the first afterward. So the first time I'd seen Biden was in the last question before the first break. And then he came out and he got the first question after the second one as well. And he went hard on climate change and started talking about climate change. And again, we'll get to climate change at the end of this, whether it's real and what the science is and all that sort of stuff, whether all of that sort of stuff at the end of it. But yeah, he went hard about climate change and came out talking about coal and how China and India need to be part of the conversation, and we need to not alienate China if we want climate change to be affected or to be addressed, because they are both the biggest importers of coal and the biggest climate carbon emitters in the world. India are the second biggest importers of coal, the third largest exporters of coal, and the fucking second highest users of it and carbon emitters as well. And so the argument that some conservative talking points or some conservative talking heads in the media make that America could do blah, 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 as much as it could go 100% renewable and the climate change would still be a thing because of China and India. Like, that's not true. America is a global leader in more than just arms, it's my Uncle Dion will be very mad at me saying this, but what America does, the rest of the world follows. And I know that because I've been to most of the rest of the world, right? And it's a fact, whether it trickles down through your fucking Harry Truman, communism's bad, so everyone that has communism anywhere near them for the next 50 years has to invade and make it a destabilized area and fucking twist shit up, right? Like, if communism doesn't work, why do we spend so much time making sure it doesn't work, right? Makes no fucking sense to me. But it's like, he came out basically being like, we need someone who can talk to China and who can talk to India, right? And Bloomberg came out as well against that, being like, climate change is mostly China and India. I agree with Joe, but that means we shouldn't do much, right? Which I was like, again, whose vote are you winning there, Mike? Like, I get it. You've paid a bunch of people to make a bunch of good ads to make you look good. But when this was your first chance to stand on a stage and be like, yo, this is me, and you fucked it up, man. You just looked like a dick for most of the debate too, like the one time that he looked maybe vaguely leadership quality was when he told Biden to shut the fuck up, but anyway, climate change is China and India, loud cheers for the Green New Deal. That's like the loudest pop of the night. In wrestling terms, right? Like, a pop is when someone will do a spot or somebody will return, like when Edge came back at the Royal Rumble or something like that, or like someone does a swanton bomb off the fucking top of the monitor, or like somebody gets choke slammed through a fucking Hell in a Cell or whatever, right? The biggest pop, the biggest crowd pop of the debate was when Bernie interrupted the third person to start talking about China and India, and interrupted while talking about the Green New Deal, and it was I thought that was really interesting, because I thought the Green New Deal was like the anchor on the Bernie campaign that was weighing him down. I thought people and the wider public weren't a fan of the Green New Deal because they weren't a fan of AOC. Personally, I like AOC. I don't know enough about that aspect of the political process. Like, I don't even know what she is, if she's a senator or a congresswoman. Like, I don't know, like, I just know she's a talking person and she's in politics somehow and whatnot. And I actually don't mind her. I feel like most of the shit she says makes a lot of sense, right? And it's interesting in that sense, right? Because I feel like her supporting Bernie, he had a bit of a drop in the polls after she came out and endorsed him, right? And it's interesting that happened, but then at the debate stage, Bloomberg's first debate of all debates, Bernie gets a big pop for the Green New Deal. You know what I mean? Which I think is really interesting. It's not what I expected from that room of people. Like, the same people that were cheering Warren for being like, how many some, and the same people that were cheering Buttigieg for basically calling Klobuchar, Amy, like Minnesota. The people calling it, they cheered when Pete called her dumb. They cheered when Warren called out Bloomberg for his fuckwittery. And they cheered loudest when Bernie spoke about the Green New Deal, which I just like. It was really interesting to me. It was strange. I didn't expect that. I don't know enough about the Green New Deal. I expect I know exactly what all the talking points want me to know, which is that it's vaguely some new environmental policy that makes big businesses pay an extra tax for the carbon they emit to encourage them not to emit so much carbon. I presume that's what it is. That's what we had in Australia under Julia Gillard. I've spoken to you about her before. She was my favourite leader. I campaigned for her. She ran under a minority government, which meant she didn't have the people to get the numbers through to get any legislation through. She had to negotiate with the opposite side to get any legislation through. And she got more legislation through than the history of anyone else in Australian government, right? Like, she was fucking mad. And it was because she could meet in the middle ground. And I can't remember why I spoke about her. Just, oh yeah, carbon tax. That was it. The reason she didn't get a I was about to say a second term. Fuck, I'm turning American as it is. Right before your eyes, I'm turning American. The reason she didn't get elected again for a second term, even though we don't have terms and all that sort of stuff anyway, the reason she didn't get elected after she'd been prime minister was because in the campaign she'd said, there won't be a carbon tax under my government. And then she was in government and she went, lol, jokes, got to introduce a carbon tax, which, one could argue any responsible leader at the time, this is in 2010 or 11, should have done. But there was a lack of responsible leaders in the globally in that space, right? And so I believe that and Tony Abbott, the king of cunts in Australian politics, right? Like, I mean, and to his credit, he has built up some public affection, if that makes sense. Like he campaigned against gay marriage. He campaigned for the religious discrimination bill, which means that basically it was a bill put in 2019 in Australia that meant you could not give people jobs or you could not provide your services to people based on your religion. So basically, if you were a baker, you could refuse to give a wedding cake to a gay couple. If you were a priest, you could refuse to wed a gay couple, which is fine. Like, if I don't want to get if I'm gay and I'm getting married, probably don't want a fucking ordained priest to begin with, right? But legislation, it dictated that you were allowed to discriminate, which was like, it only got in because of a whole bunch of shit, and there'll be a different video, and I will do a different video on it. It's still that is still like turning its course. It's still in the process of being denied by the Senate, even though it got through the House of Reps years ago when he did it and all that sort of stuff. But he's got public affection again, even though he is a zealot and a bigot. He's got attention again because he's also a volunteer firefighter and has been for like 40 years. And he uses the money that he's earned and his political entitlements for travel to go to bushfire affected areas and volunteer as a firefighter nationwide, not just in his local area that he lives. And that's fucking cool. And that is absolutely commendable. Definitely agree with that. Again, like we were talking about before, I'm not one of those people that goes, oh, well, if you're conservative, you automatically suck, right? Like, he is a conservative and he's a cunt for so many reasons, but that is not one of them. You know what I mean? But anyway, we'll move forward. I can't remember why I started talking about him. Oh, yeah, carbon tax. That was it. He got in because he was like, well, Julia Gillard lied about the carbon tax, and then he got rid of it. And then the Adani coal mine became a thing because of the no longer tax being there, if that makes sense. Like, it wouldn't cost them as much, and so they went about doing it. And if you don't know what the Adani coal mine is, I recommend you look it up, because basically, long story short, and I will get back to the debate in a second, right? There's four different types of coal. The top two emit far less emit far less carbon and into the atmosphere than the bottom two. The bottom two is like metallurgical coal, which comes out the best. And then there's other types of coal that get washed to be like metallurgical coal, but aren't quite as good as that, but are still pretty good. And then there's the other two types that fucking suck and put up a whole bunch of carbon emissions, right? That's how coal equals climate change in that sense. As an Australian, coal is our biggest export. And so I understand quite specifically, I don't know what the word's supposed to be there that I'm trying to find. Sorry, I've got a burp coming, but it just won't come. All right, it's gone. I understand the ins and outs of coal, and I understand the especially for Australia, that if coal is suddenly switched off overnight and no one's getting coal, that country's economy is fucked. Like, straight up fucked. It's our main export, right? But that is because of political ineptitude that made it our main export and didn't nationalize it when they could have. And there's lots of different reasons for that being really, really bad for Australia. The reason for that, though, is because Australia sells metallurgical coal. The difference between metallurgical coal and the other ones, and I'm being very general when I say this, right? But the type of, depending on what type of coal you are, depends on what type of thing you were before you became coal. So coal becomes a thing by billions and billions of years ago. There was a body of water that was only just a little bit of water, like it was water on ground, sort of like a thinly flooded area, or a marsh or bog, or like a little runoff river or whatever, right? Like a creek bed or whatever. And then there was an earthquake or a volcano eruption or any sort of geological activity, and that water substancey thing gets crushed underneath the newly changed environment as a result of the geological event that occurred, and then billions and billions of years pass, and lots of other geological events occur, which means that the density is impacted of that stuff that's been buried, right? And so coal, billions and billions of years after that water stuff has been buried, it's now coal, right? And whether or not it burns at a higher rate carbon-wise, like whether it emits carbon while it burns. So, for example, if you've ever lit a match, right? Or not a match, a bit of paper is better. If you've ever lit a bit of paper and you see the bits of paper fucking off and floating off and like almost it looks like they're disappearing before your eyes, except they're not. They're just turning into vapor because they burnt and you can see them turning and doing all that, right? So picture that with your coal. The two types of coal that don't flake off and do that as much are metallurgical coal and the other one that gets washed, right? And it's not metallurgical, but it gets washed to appear like it is metallurgical. Those two don't emit carbon. Like it's something like 1 in 1,000% or something. Like the other two emit something like 1,000 more percent than these two, right? If everyone was using metallurgical coal, we wouldn't have a climate change problem as big as it is today. We would still have a climate change problem because we've been flying blind for a very long time, and we hadn't known all of the science that we do know now, and we've got to make we've got to tweak some stuff to bring it back to where it needs to be, right? But metallurgical coal is not bad. It's what a lot of people refer to as clean coal. Clean coal has become a bit of a pejorative. People say that clean coal doesn't exist. It's cleaner coal. It still emits carbon, but it's cleaner coal by a long fucking way, right? And that's all Australia sells at the moment. The Adani coal mine is a mine under the Great Barrier Reef, of all places. The fucking Great Barrier Reef, right? The Australia's one of two natural wonders of the world. If they could mine Uluru, they fucking would. Like the Great Barrier Reef is being and it's bleaching the whole fucking thing. The whole thing's dying because they're mining underneath it and it's making it fucked, right? Like it's wrecking it, right? And it's like those are scientific facts that Adani is trying to mine even further under the Great Barrier Reef for this like third type of coal that they want government funding to wash to turn into this second type of coal, right? And it's just a fucking clusterfuck, right? But I'm going to move on from carbon and coal. But yeah, the Green New Deal, I presume, I'm going to come back to the debate now. Green New Deal, I presume, is a debate is about a carbon tax. And I believe in carbon taxes. And if it would make sense if there wasn't so much hysteria around coal and around climate change from all the fuckwit hicks that say it's not real because they're fucking milkmans, bosses, professors, high school students, fucking shoelace tying, glue eating coach fucking told them that it wasn't, right? They're not actually looking to any actual scientists. And as much as I say, like people say to me, oh, well, climate change is real then, but what about man-made climate change isn't real? Because if you look at this big broad graph, several billion years ago it peaked as well. That was because of an asteroid impact, you fucking dickhead. Like, all you got to do is know how to Google, right? And you will know all of these things. Being stupid is one of the things that I just don't understand, especially in America. You have so much access. Like, there are libraries here. There are so many countries in the world that don't have fucking libraries, right? Like, if there was somebody on the debate stage today, if libraries weren't a thing and somebody on the debate stage today said, how about we institute this thing, right, where you can get free internet, you can get free books on anything you want, right? You can get free history. You can get free access to air conditioning. You can get free access to community-run fucking meetings. You can get free, like all the shit that libraries do at the moment, right? If they weren't already in power, you can bet your fucking ass they wouldn't happen again, right? Like it just wouldn't, right? And so it's like in a world and in America where you have so much access to information, it just strikes me as odd when people say and can still say that, oh, well, climate change isn't a thing, like it is. Every person on the stage agreed it was tonight, even fuckwit Bloomberg, But anyway, I'm going to keep going. Climate change woke Biden up. Loud cheers for the Green New Deal. Klobuchar was for fracking, which I think is interesting. It's a different means of extracting the same stuff in a nutshell, and it's really interesting. And like obviously libraries aren't free. You can pay a membership and you can pay fucking taxes, pay for them, and all that sort of stuff. Like I get it, right? Like I understand that when I say free, sometimes I mean paid for by the taxpayer. But as far as I'm concerned, the amount of taxes that are paid in this fucking country, like you don't need any more new taxes in America. You just need to stop spending your taxes on killing Middle Eastern children. Like, sorry, that might be a bit of a mic drop, but it's as simple as that. You know what I mean? If the military budget was 5% fewer than it is, we'd be able to fund every single new idea that was on that stage tonight. You know what I mean? And I get it. Like, America's got they were founded by rebels against a tyrannical king, and who was a fucking shit king, absolutely, hands down, King George III, prob's worst King George, prob's worst king there was, definitely the worst King George there was. Like without a doubt, totally understand why you guys fucked off and why you enacted a government in the way you did. But it seems like because of the rebellious nature in which, and in the way in which you started it, right? There's got to be this bombastic, like, oh, well, we've got to defend what's ours because we have to take it from them to have it, right? And I get that, like, I understand, and that's part of why gun control's a thing as well, because it's inherent and it's generational, it's a generational psyche, you know what I mean? People talk a lot about the generational trauma of stolen generations in Australia or slavery here in America and stuff, and generational trauma is a thing, but it works on the other side as well. If you've got generations and generations of people being like elitist fucking smug cunts, you're going to like raise kids that are elitist smug cunts as well, and not that Americans are elitist smug cunts, but I was using them as an example, you know what I mean? But it's the US, the US spends more on their military than like pretty much everyone else combined. You could, and I'm not going to harp on the gun control too much. Biden was the only person to talk about guns tonight on the entire stage. He mentioned it once, and there was a ooh from the crowd. And then he mentioned it in his closing statement as well, basically being like, yo, you guys are all funded by the NRA. I'm not. And that was a really interesting comment I thought to make. I was like, fucking, why didn't you lean into that, bro? Why didn't Joe, man, where have you been all this time? Why aren't you leaning into that argument? That might win you some fucking votes, you boring cunt. But anyway, he made a point that was, I just lost track of what I was talking about there. Yeah, guns. Basically, I understand why guns are a thing here, and I understand why politics is a thing here. You know what I mean? Why that attitude and defense, if that makes sense. There we go, defense. The politics of defense. I understand why it's a thing, and I understand why it's so important to Americans that nobody could just rock up one day and be like, yo, this is ours now, and try and fight you. Like, the history of America explains why currently America spends more on their military than anyone else in the history of the world, right? However, they also spend more on peace-making things and on peace around the world globally. Like NATO is basically all America, and I have regular arguments with my Australian family and friends about, oh, well, per capita, Australian pay. Fuck your per capita. We pay for most of NATO. Like, it doesn't matter that there's 400 million of us here, 360, whatever. You could have more people on your fucking island in the Pacific as well. Like, you just don't like immigrants. So you don't have as many people. America has a fuck ton of people because over a very large course of time, they were very welcoming to immigrants. And it's a very nice place to live, Like, if you want a higher population and you want more money and you want to be able to spend it on shit, fucking open your doors. Make your people breed. Like, pay them a baby bonus, for fuck's sake. I don't know, but don't expect America, just because there's 360 fucking million of us, to pay for all your peace shit, And I get that too. Like, I understand both sides of the argument in the, well, we need a big military and we need to, we're also paying for everyone's peace, right? And that, America's military, is as much as everyone takes the piss because, Team America, fuck yeah. America, fuck yeah. I'm gonna watch that song. I'm gonna watch that song on YouTube later as well. It's been a while since I heard that. But America is the world police, though. Like, they straight up are. People joke about it, right? People joke about it, but you're not getting a UN peacekeeping service without some fucking American soldiers or some American infantry equipment. You're not getting any NATO fucking peacekeepers without some American military equipment or some American military personnel. That's like fact. It's not it's not pejorative. It's not me being like, oh yeah, fuck yeah, America. It's fact. Like these things are fact. We do a lot more than any other country around the world, you know? And it's like it makes sense. And like, not sure anyone else would have got Russia to chill the fuck out. Like the Cold War was a bit shit. Don't get me wrong. Everything sucked. Like that's bringing it down a chunk, and you know, like what's the opposite of generalizing? Not generalize. Like I narrowed it down when I shouldn't have. But yeah, like America is interesting in that sense, you know. But it's like I think it's in the gun control topic. I don't get. Because, like, I understand why you would want to defend yourself from a tyrannical government. And that made sense before they got tanks and drones and fucking aircraft, like military fighter jets and shit. Like, you're not beating the government. There is no way a group of the citizens, like, no matter how well organized the group or well regulated, as the fucking amendment says, right? Like, even in the amendment, it says well regulated militia. Doesn't just say fucking free for all. I've read it. But like, I don't understand the perspective of, oh, well, I've got lots of guns that I could individually shoot. I'm definitely going to be able to beat that mob that can, with a PlayStation controller from 10,000 miles away, drop bombs onto my house. Like, it's just not it's not a, or it is a nonsensical argument to say that guns are for protecting yourself against a tyrannical government. And if you acknowledge that you would not ever at any point be able to beat the the US government, then you can have your guns taken off you, because what you're really saying is I want it for protection against my fellow man, and we need to be working, and we need to work together while we take the guns away as well, to create an area and create a country where my fellow man isn't someone I need to be scared of, right? And there's lots of different things that we like. I've got a video on gun control I'm going to do. There's a really cool dude who is a regular contributor to my channel and a regular commenter in these live streams and all that sort of stuff, right? And he talks frequently about how he's he's an advocate for guns. He likes guns. He's otherwise socially liberal, but he doesn't think gun control works because of various reasons in the country. And he sent me not just the talking points of the NRA and stuff, but of the I love that as well. Like, again, I just saw one comment as it was coming through: "Get off my guns, Aussie. Bite me. First Amendment says I can fucking say what I want. Your First Amendment says I can say. Your Second Amendment sucks dicks." And yeah, like, I just think it's really interesting that people make the argument that they're going to come out and be like, "Oh, you can't take my guns because I need them to take over the tyrannical government." Where were you when they nearly repealed Roe versus Wade? Like, where were you when fucking like, there are so many times there's been a fucking tyrannical government, right? Or what one might assume to be tyrannical, right? Like, where were you in the impeachment process where nobody was allowed to bring any witnesses? What's a trial without any witnesses? You know, like, where is this well-regulated militia that I've heard so much about that is supposed to come and take over when the government's pulling fucking strings that they shouldn't be? Because I've heard a lot about it, right? But I can't fucking see it anywhere. But anyway, my mate that's a regular contributor has sent me his perspectives and the perspective of his other gun-loving friends that maybe he doesn't agree with. But I'm going to do a big, long video on gun control. Maybe not a live stream, because I'll get very emotive with the dickheads that just want to troll and stuff like that. But yeah, I will do a video on gun control, I promise you. I love America. I love this country. There's a reason I moved here. I mean, the reason is my wife. But like, it's a good country. I'd have moved us somewhere else. Like, I very, very, very seriously contemplated it, like working hard, staying in Australia for a while, getting as much money as I could, and moving us all to somewhere like Denmark or Norway or something like that. But I chose to come to Australia, come to America, sorry, from Australia, because of the different positive aspects that America has on a global scale, and because of the different positive aspects it is yet to have, but has the capacity to have if we build up enough fucks to give, if that makes sense, right? And I want to be a part of that building up. And I want to be a part of the, like, I want my one fiber to be a part of the fabric of the story of America. You know what I mean? And so that's what I want, and I feel like gun control needs to be a part of that story. And as an Australian, with the experience that I have, I feel like me talking about it will probably help, bring some people who maybe aren't extreme on either side. Like, I'm not saying take every fucking gun away. I'm just saying take all the guns away from people who might shoot other people. You know what I mean? Like, it's shoot as many fucking elk as you like, like shoot as many foxes as you like. I don't give a shit. Pass a test. Make sure you're psychologically able. You don't want to kill your ex-wife. You don't want to fucking. You're not going to go out there and Chris Benoit your family or something. Like, that's cool. That's fine. As long as you're not going to do that, have your gun. It doesn't bother me, But like, for the same reason that no one's just allowed to hop in a car and drive it, no one should just be allowed to rock up to a gun store and buy it. And I feel like that's not an illogical argument to make. But anyway, I'm going to move on. Where were we? Yeah, Klobuchar was for fracking. Warren went back on the attack. Warren wants to roll back the filibusters, which I thought was really interesting. Filibusters are super, super interesting to me because it's not really a thing that can happen in Australian politics. My understanding of what a filibuster is basically we have this long to talk about this bill or bill that is potentially going to be law, right? But I'm going to talk for as long as I possibly humanly can so that the time runs out on us discussing this and nobody else can say anything. Is that what a filibuster is? Like, it's effectively... I remember in The West Wing, and I watched The West Wing as a teenager, right? So I'm doing these West Wing references off a decade of memory. So it might have changed and stuff, but I'm fairly certain there was a character whose grandson was autistic, and there was an amendment in a bill about autism that he didn't like, and so he spoke for like a fucking 12, 13 hours, and the president was like, what the fuck's he doing? Oh, hang on a minute, he's got a grandson that's autistic. Well, fuck, let's get everyone involved. Hopefully he'll understand how the process works. Like, will you yield for a question so that you can have a glass of water? All that sort of stuff, right? And I get that, but I sort of don't, because I don't understand what the point of talking before the filibuster was. Like, I understand what a filibuster is in the sense of it's someone talking for a fucking long time to stop other things being talked about. But yeah, I don't understand the difference. You know what I mean? Like that. And I don't mean arguments as in like aggressive arguments. I mean arguments as in like debate arguments. Like, it's discussion points even is a better term, right? Discussion points like the majority of gun deaths in the USA are suicide, not murder, that make it seem like you're saying suicide is okay. Because if there is a gun in the house, suicide becomes more likely and is an easier option for people who are on the fence, right? Like, as a person with bipolar, myself, or a bipolar person, or a person living with bipolar, or whatever you want to use the language, right? My brain's not the same as everyone else's. And I can tell you now, there were some times, like I've attempted to take my life several times. If I had access to a gun in Australia, or any of my mates had access to a gun in Australia, I'd have been one of those statistics you're talking about. And so the question what you're asking then is, or the question that leads then is my life and the life of people with mental health issues worth some maybe, inconveniences in yours? Like going to the DMV to get a driver's license, I would not be allowed to get a gun. You know what I mean? Like, obviously, you're not saying suicide's okay. I'm not trying to infer that that's what you're saying. I'm sorry if that's how it came across. I'm not suggesting that you're saying suicide's okay. However, in the discussion of, they conflate the facts of how many gun deaths. Like, to me, it doesn't matter if the gun death is yourself or someone else. It's a gun death, and it's a gun death it's a death that could have been removed from the situation or could have been prevented without the gun there. You know what I mean? Gun violence, absolutely, gun violence is a social issue, but I think I sort of disagree with your point, right? But I do agree with it as well. I'm saying it's two different. Like, this is Xander again. Sorry, I'm saying it's two different issues. Gun violence is a social issue. Suicide is a mental health issue. I think mental health is mental health is a social issue. Don't you agree though? Like, social health is important, and individual mental health, like, there are statistics about it that individual mental health is fostered and developed and built upon by a wider social health. There was a scientific experiment. I can't remember the bloke's name, but if you Google Rat Park, it'll come up, right? And it was more about addiction than about anything else or anything like that, right? It was about how drug addiction's silly. The thought process is silly in regards to drug addiction in this country and in most English-speaking countries around the world at the moment, right? In that it's yeah, no, I hear you, Xander. It's much easier for me with my fucking stream of consciousness talking to get out my ideas more broadly than it is in a small little thing, right? But the fucking, what was I saying? Yeah, mental health is a social issue. The Rat Park experiment is basically an experiment to go, all right, all our thoughts on addiction we'll put this rat in a cage, we'll give it a bottle of water, and we'll give it a bottle of water laced with heroin, right? And it went off tap, fucking straight over to the heroin until it died, right? And so that's when we went, all right, well, that's what addiction does. You just keep doing it until you die. Fuck off, cat. Give me a sec. Get out of the way. There we go. We based our theory on addiction based off that, like the 2 water bottles, 1 water bottle, 1 laced with heroin, and he just fucking did heroin until he died, right? And until this experiment, I think it was in the 70s, right? This bloke that did Rat Park, and I wish I could remember his name now. Hate it how I do this. I'll remember the experiment and the cool thing that was discovered, but I won't remember the poor cunt that discovered it, right? I feel bad. But it's, he did this new experiment called Rat Park, right? Which was he kept the water bottle and the water bottle laced with heroin. But instead of putting 1 rat in a cage with just 2 water bottles, he put a town of rats into that cage. He put like fucking 200 rats into that cage. He gave them cool little fucking spinning wheels. He gave them like food. He gave them all sorts of types of stuff, right? Like it was Rat Park, like exactly what you'd want. Hey, socks, I'm talking sods. Exactly. If you were a rat, this was ideal life, right? And none of the rats OD'd. Like some of them, every now and then, would go and have a look at the heroin bottle because they like tripping balls, right? But none of them OD'd. And so it's like the entire thought process on addiction, and therefore on a wider arc as well on social health, right? It's about the cage that you live in, and it's about the broader society that you're a part of, right? And mental health, individual mental health, is, one could argue, incredibly dependent upon a wider social health. And that, at least that's my basic understanding of the case, And so while I agree with you that gun control is come on, sweetheart, I'm wearing fucking tights. Can you just jump instead of crawling? Here you go. Like instead of sorry, what was that? Yeah, social welfare, mental health is a social health problem, and gun control is both, as far as I'm concerned. Like I understand the perspective of, and I'm going to come back up here because I want to read your comment again. Bear with me. Remember reading about that experiment. That's good. Anyway, I've lost it now because it's gone. I can't scroll. It's not letting me. But yeah, I feel like it's a conversation that I come up against very, very frequently. And yeah, the fucking cat is poking its bum up to me. Well, yeah, bro. Like that's like, again, not trying to call you out or anything. This is another comment from Xander saying, interesting point. In the 1800s, when there was no restrictions on guns, there were way less violent crime than there is now if you adjust for population. And like, that's because they didn't have the ability to fucking hold the trigger down and shoot and kill like 400 people at once, I presume, And it's also because they had social welfare programs that were, again, if you expanded upon them now and built them up to where they would have been now, they would have already been in place, It was older tech. There was less dense populations. Like, weren't you all spread out on the fucking, what is it, the Oregano Trail or something? I don't fucking know. There weren't as many people here, and they weren't as close together, and there weren't as many people like Mike Bloomberg. Guarantee you there were no fucking billionaires in 1800. So the desperation stakes at the other end of the scale probably weren't as high, and so the need for crime to try and survive probably wasn't as high as well. You know what I mean? But Oregon Trail, there we go. But yeah, like it's it's interesting. Like people that say to me, or the argument of gun control being a oh, well, that would be solved if we could solve mental health issues. And it's like, well, maybe that's the case, but we haven't, and we're not. So can we take the guns away until we do, please? Because and it's a story I talk about all the time. Martin Bryant in Australia, like fucking Asperger's as fuck. Just the most autistic person you can imagine, right? And I don't mean that in an offensive terms to any people that are autistic. There are lovely people autistic that I know that would be offended by me using that term as a pejorative. But like this dude was Asperger's. Like he was Asperger's, and he was on the fucking like tippy toe edge of the spectrum as far as you can go. And he would not get access to a gun in Australia anymore. He would not absolutely. He would not be. He wouldn't get. You can't just. Jim Jeffries does a really good bit on it. You can't just rock up to the docks like in Australia. If you know the right people and you have the right amount of cash, you can get a gun without having a license for it. But you've got to know the right people. And when I say the right people, I mean the fucking wrong people, right? You've got to have connections. You've got to have a lot of money, and you've got to know like who's watching you and when, right? Like it's an intricate black market type thing. In Australia, if you want a gun and you don't want to be licensed for it, it's going to cost you about 40 grand, right? That's a fucking pistol. Yeah? Like like nothing super serious or anything like that, right? If you have 40 grand and the connections to get a gun, you don't fucking need one. You're a big enough deal already, bro. Like you don't need one for whatever reason you thought it was that you needed it in the first place. You know what I mean? And it's interesting to me the people that say, "Oh, well, gun violence is a mental health issue," and you're right, it is. So why don't we control and regulate people with mental health issues from having access to guns? You know what I mean? Like it like it doesn't feel like a logical answer to the discussion for me, if that makes sense. Like it just seems like I understand that. That's why we need gun control. And I'm not trying to belittle you or anything like that. You know what I mean? And it's like it's but you don't. That's the thing. A lot of people say that as well. That's the next thing that comes to me is, oh, well, there are a lot of areas where you have to jump through loops and holes as well. I could literally drive to a state right now if I wanted to where I didn't have to jump through a hoop. That means I don't have to jump through hoops. It doesn't matter how like tickle pink your laws are in Niagara Falls or Erie County. If in fucking Buffalo or Ontario you can buy a gun and then just drive in here unchecked. You know what I mean? Like there aren't physical borders for counties, and I'm not in any way advocating that in any sense, but like literally children can go and buy guns at gun shows. That is unfettered access. And any attempt at gun control by small government is only because big government's not doing their job, And the reason small government gun control hasn't worked is because big government hasn't bankrolled it and big government hasn't put it into effect. You know what I mean? It's that's that's again it's a non sequitur or whatever, however you guys say it, non sequitur or something. It's like it's a good point, but it doesn't prove your point, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? And yeah, exactly. CJ here, guy offered me a pistol for $100 the other day. Lol, no background check. Exactly. Like I was at my mate Sean's the other day and I saw like fucking. He has one gun by his back door. He's got one gun by his basement door. He's got one gun by his grow setup. Like he's got fucking all sorts of guns in that fucking house, right? Taught me how to shoot one before he would let me in case the place got fucking raided. And like it's literally like I didn't actually shoot it, but he showed me what I would have to do in a fucking like in a pickle. And it's like I understand. Believe me, after holding one and after like feeling the feelings that you get with it, I get it why you like guns and I get it why you don't want them taken away from you. But knowing the crazy hot-headed cunt that I can be sometimes, I also understand why it's a really, 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 really good thing I don't have access to one. You know what I mean? But yeah, like 3D printers make guns. That's another good comment from Rad J. So it's a good one there. Xander, I've dealt in gun sales and gun collection for 30 years. I have never found a state where you can walk into a gun store and walk out with a handgun. Well, again, that's your experience, and I will not deny it. And that seems like it seems what's the word I'm looking for? It seems like maybe that might not specifically be true. You know what I mean? Because I feel like I mean, the same guy I buy weed from would sell me a gun if I asked him to. You know what I mean? Like, it's not about the regulation at that point. And I also understand that there are a lot more okay, so gun shows, like I get confused between gun shows and gun stores. Gun shows are the problem, gun stores aren't, like whichever. But like I know for a fact that my good mate fucking fell out of my head just then what I was about to talk about. Yeah, that was it. My good mate James, right, when he was here in America, went to a store, wanted to buy a gun. He was like, "Oh, there are all these machines, like there's all this sort of stuff. You've got to put my name down, like, don't you, in this state?" And the guy literally, like the guy in the gun store, and he told, again, this is one person's story from 4 years ago that he told me while we were drinking in a bar in Australia, right? So who knows if it's valid or not. But he told me that when he was in Australia, in America, he went to a gun store. He wanted to buy a gun. He didn't have any legal rights. Like, he was on a tourist visa. He wasn't in any capacity to do it. And he said, "Oh, can I buy it? Like, you know, can I do this sort of thing, or is there a machine?" And the guy was like, "Oh, well, there is a machine, but it's down at the moment." You know, and it's like, if that's the system that we're saying works, maybe we need to change the system, I think, you know? And again, I think that a lot of the gun problems get solved if you legalize cannabis, like you've just said as well, Rad J. Because, like, cannabis is a gateway drug, and we'll move past and get back to the debate in a sec, right? I promise. Cannabis is absolutely a gateway drug. I wouldn't have done any of the harder drugs that I got hooked on for a while, and thankfully am clean of as a result, if it weren't for cannabis. However, cannabis is only a gateway drug because I was lied to about cannabis to begin with, right? So I smoked weed and I went, well, fuck, what else have they been lying to me about? The only other person I know that they've been lying to me about, like, they lied to me about weed. The only other person I know that knows we were lied to about weed is also slinging fucking oxys and slinging fucking cocaine and slinging fucking this and that, which we haven't been lied to about, which are fucking bad for the system and bad for you, right? Weed is an entry point to the dealer, and the dealer is the gateway. If we legalize weed, make it so you can get a gram for a fucking buck at your local corner shop, people aren't going to be going to those people for their, like, they're not going to be going to that guy for something that, you know, they want to sit on the couch and chill out for an evening. Therefore, those people are going to lose their money, and it has a flow-on effect from there. You know, I feel like you would see less gun violence if weed was legal. Anyway, right? But I agree with you that the buying a gun off the street is not the same as buying a gun legally. But buying a gun legally, as well as changing the laws to make obtaining guns that aren't bought legally, the punishment's more harsher for that, you know, like make every gun registered, like a car has to be registered. If you're found to be in ownership of a gun that isn't registered, make sure you are fucking reamed for that, like jail time. And I know that sounds extreme for, you know, jail time for an unregistered weapon or whatever, but it's, you know, that's what you got to do. Buy back, pay 10 times what they're worth, you know, like you know, pay a criminal 10 times what it's worth, and the criminal will give you the money. It will give you the gun for the money. Criminals aren't criminals because it's fun. Criminals are criminals because they're on desperation mode, generally speaking, right? It's a symptom. Crime is a symptom of poor social action and poor social welfare, not a inherent psyche of the human. You know, we don't want to hurt each other. We grew up and live in tribes, right? And it's, you know, you register every weapon, you keep them all in a safe, you keep them all, the ammunition in a different safe, you keep those safes in separate rooms of the house, both of which are at opposite ends of the house to the main living space. You make sure that they're a specific type of combination lock so that your fucking kid can't grab your keys and go and do it and get it and whatever. Like, there are lots and lots of different follow-ups to all the if, buts, and maybes, you know what I mean? But at the end of the day, the system is broken currently. When you have pink-haired, wide-eyed fuckers walking into movie theaters, pretending to be the Joker, shooting up places, like, that wouldn't happen in Australia. And there are a lot of the things that Australia does wrong. Don't even get me started on the criticism I could provide to Australia, right? But if you acknowledge that something's wrong, if you can acknowledge that something's wrong in the country in terms of gun control, then you should, I feel, be more inclined to putting up potential solutions and not just, oh well, we can't do it because XYZ, or we can't do it because of that. Because I feel like there are always answers if you dig deep enough, it's again, Jim Jeffries does a really fucking good bit on it. It's not about safety, because otherwise there'd be Padlock Weekly magazines and you'd all have bars on your windows and stuff. Like it's a particular type of safety. You know what I mean? But Xander Case, I guess my point all of this is, don't punish law-abiding citizens for the acts of evil people. That's how society functions, bro. That's how society functions. That's like, I can take drugs like a fucking champion, but little Jimmy went and shot up and then shot someone up, and now that drug's illegal. You know what I mean? And like, fucking, I can drive my car really fucking fast and control it very well, like, till all the bits around you are shaking. But because Carol went and got drunk and then killed her kids in a car accident, we have speed limits. You know what I mean? And it's like, I'm not trying to argue with you either. It's all good. Like, I'm glad we're having this discussion, but it's like, that's what society is. That's what we've all agreed upon. You know what I mean? Is that we all take our little minor inconveniences so that the better, so that we can all be better off. I'm not suggesting everyone has their guns taken off them. And if you're a law-abiding citizen that is also not psychotic, not on the bipolar / narcissism / sociopath fucking spectrum, you're not on the, like, as long as you are mentally efficient enough to wield a gun and not fucking shoot up a stool or a business or just a random fucking place because you don't like Mondays, for example, like, yeah, like, I'm not taking your gun. You seem like a reasonable bloke. You seem like a reasonable, logical, like, sound mentally sort of person. You know what I mean? You don't seem crazy to me, so we're not taking your gun. We're taking the guns of the crazy people. Like, Medicare for all, regular mental health checkups, locked in different fucking rooms of the house, the ammunition and the storage, regular spot checks of you and that your weapons are, like, of your psychological welfare. So you're in, like, not regular therapy. Once every 6 months, you go and see a psych, whatever. Regular spot checks on whether your guns are locked up in the appropriate. And I'm talking worse than fucking drug checks in a fucking professional sports. Like, once or twice every couple of months, someone's rocking up at your house at 2 a.m. to find out, see where your guns are, if they're stored correctly. You know what I mean? Like, it's legitimately all the things we do for driving. For example, you get your eyes checked, you get your like, there's a whole process involved of driving, learning to drive a car, having a professional teach you how to drive a car, being able to prove to the government that a professional taught you how to drive that car, and then you are allowed to drive the car. It's like, I just don't think gun ownership should be a right. It should be a privilege that you are able to prove to the government you're allowed to earn, And I understand that, a lot of people just go, oh, well, you can't do that. It's part of our rights. It's the Second Amendment. But it's like, it's called an amendment. It's like, they're made to be amended. Yeah, I still don't understand the argument. You know what I mean? So and again, I don't think we're arguing. I'd have a beer with you. I think this would be an interesting chat to have at a bar. You know what I mean? If I didn't think I was going to get fucking shot while I was there, but but it's just, I'm still yet to hear what I would call a logical argument for not putting in gun control. You know what I mean? And I'm not calling you an illogical person. I'm just saying I don't understand your perspective on this sense. You know what I mean? But bear with me, I'm going to look at some of the comments because some more Americans are getting involved as well, blah, blah. Brad Dage, there's this thing called the Constitution. Guns can't be taken. Yeah, right. Slavery was in the Constitution as well, right? What was the amendment where you could get rid of slavery? Which amendment was that? Like, it's called an amendment, bro. You definitely can take them. That's like, we just have to collectively agree on it. Regular mental health checkups with Medicare for all. Yeah, I think I said that. Good point. Straight up, I own over 150 guns between my personal collection and my small shop. Never had the desire to shoot anyone. Lol, everyone is registered. I'm not trying to take your guns, bro. 150 seems excessive unless they're like old and cool and stuff. Like, I don't know. I collect fucking hats. Like people collect shit. I get that. I've got Yankees hats. I've got fucking Bruins hats. I've got hats of teams I don't like, like the Yankees and the Bruins. I just like hats. And so if it's a nice looking hat and I think it might look good on my head at some point or feel fun to wear, I'll buy it. And so I understand the perspective of that in regards to guns as well, given that you are a compos mentis, intelligent person that is perfectly happy to abide by the law. I would just like people like yourself and people who maybe aren't as compos mentis, aren't as straight up and down as you are, to pass some tests. I want people to prove that they are as sound intellectually as you are before they have access to guns. I'm not saying don't give anyone guns. I'm saying don't give the loonies guns, CJD would be pretty simple, like eyesight checks for driving. Rajay, Xander, no matter what you may hear on Fox News, as long as you abide by the law, your guns will never be taken. I promise. That's a good point, I guess. It's kind of what I'm saying. We're talking about a law made when people couldn't imagine things. Example, a computer can never be smaller than a room. Now we have a computer in our hands. Yeah, exactly, right? Like, that's a really good point as well. Like, these guys, like, they understand the legislation and why it's a thing, because, they literally were rebelling against a tyrannical government at the time. And so they needed to put in a thing of, well, you always, you need to be able to, a well-regulated militia. Like, even in the amendment, it says well-regulated, right? A well-regulated militia being necessary to blah, 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 right? But they had fucking muskets, bro. Like, these people didn't have, like, they weren't anticipating a world where the tyrannical government had drones and tanks and military aircraft and a naval force that had the second biggest air force in the world just behind their first air force. You know what I mean? Like, it's a different time, and the amendment can be amended. That's why it's called an amendment. But yeah, you definitely have valid points. I do not disagree with you completely. I'm just saying a lot of people here have these conversations and picture jackbooted men in black swatting for the... Yeah, exactly. Like, and a lot of people, absolutely, that's what it comes down to. I feel like at the end of the day, most progress in America is stymied by the hysterical left creating caricatures of the logical people on the center right who are just a little bit cautious and conservative, right? Which is understandable and the way most people, I think, should be, be a little bit hesitant, but change when change is necessary. And instead of trying to convince people a lot of the time, I feel like the left, especially here in America, is more just, oh, well, if you don't think like I do, you're dumb. I'm not going to talk to you, And I don't like that perspective. And I agree with you in the fact that whenever people talk about gun control, they picture some, short, pink-haired lesbian that's triggered versus some jacked up fucking Reagan-loving, like a Southern Confederate flag, losing flag, tattoo-bearing fucking, like, more America sort of person. And, like, while both of those people exist, they both represent like 0.00001% of the population. This person's louder, and as a result, we think this person exists more, and the conversation gets broken down in the, oh, well, you believe this, or no, you believe that. I feel like we can come to an answer if people like you and I have here have a discussion and sit down and talk about it, because I feel like I don't mean to sound like a dick when I say this, right? Like, I'm not trying to come across as like a smug cunt or anything like that. But I feel like you're yet to bring something up that might have changed my mind, but I maybe potentially might have given you some food for thought, because I haven't been as demonstrative. That's the way I feel about this conversation, and this is the only way we're going to get it to happen, I think, as well. So that's a good point, I guess, is that a lot of people here picture the jackbooted men in black swatting them for their house. You're exactly right. Common sense. I just missed it. Common sense gun control. Hillary was actually shit talked when she said that. Lol. Well, I mean, there was lots of other things to do with Hillary that maybe weren't the best. I'll get back to the debate now, actually, because I was, we went off on a big tangent there. But I feel like from everything I've seen and from all the debates I watched from that time and from the political, like I am a student of politics in a broader sense. You know what I mean? I don't feel like Hillary was the lesser of two evils in that election. Like I probably would have voted for Trump ahead of Hillary, just on the basis of how blatantly she screwed over Bernie in the DNC. You know what I mean? So anyway, 13th Amendment, is that the slavery one? Also, it's XFL season, baby. Absolutely, XFL. We'll have a chat about XFL, not NFL. I only own Steelers gear. I'd fight you over my favorite team before I'd fight you over guns. That's funny. That's mad. So I don't mind the Steelers. They're not bad. That's a Roethlisberger or whatever his name is, isn't it? Ben, the big guy. They had Antonio Brown, but then he got hit in the head, turned into a fuckwit, and fucked off to a whole bunch of different other clubs. I hear that's what happened. There was this one hit and just boom, he turned into a fuckwit. But anyway, yeah, I don't mind the Steelers. I think, hey, if you have any Steelers hats you would like to feature on my hat wall in my reaction videos, feel free to send me one. My PO box is in the description. Just throwing that out there. But guns will never be banned. Certain guns, ARs, maybe. Like, it's just the language of it, Like, nobody's calling for a ban. Nobody's suggesting guns be banned. People are suggesting that, like, dopey cunts and mentally inefficient cunts and the people who don't have the intellectual capacity to decipher right from wrong, we're asking that they don't have guns or that they severely have the access to guns limited. Maybe they're only allowed to, like, fucking eat glue and fire off their pistol at a weapon range under supervision or something, Like, I don't even care if the crazy cunts have access to guns so long as they can't shoot people with them. You know what I mean? Like, it's guns are fun. Never shot one, but I imagine it would be fun. I've shot plenty of bows and arrows. They're fun. I like the targeting aspect. I like the thrill of hunting. Hunting can be fun. Like, I'm not suggesting guns should be banned. I'm suggesting that guns should be regulated. That's the difference. And I don't think guns will ever be banned, but I sure as shit hope they'll be regulated fucking ASAP. I keep scrolling. Every time I scroll, I've got to scroll back to where I was at. Anyway, I'll get back to the debate and I'll get back to these comments. I'm going to stop talking about gun control. But I'll go to CJ for advice. Also, we were trained not to use 3-rounders, but I will come back to all of those, right? Because I don't even know. But let's get back to the debate, because I keep doing this, getting sidetracked and talking guns in most of my live streams. But I will do a gun control video and then we can put it to bed, And I'll read I'll scroll all the way back up after this and read all of them as well. Where was I, though? Climate change, Bloomberg, climate change. Biden had a better second half going against big coal, going after. He was suggesting we go after big coal like we go after big tobacco, like he wishes we went after the NRA. Yeah, that was where I was at. That's what started this whole gun conversation, was that Biden was the only one to bring up gun control, and he did it twice in the debate, including in his closing statement. So maybe that's something he's going to push. Maybe he thinks that's something that's going to build up his electability. You know what I mean? All good, man. Thank you, Xander, for chiming in with it as well. I hope you weren't offended by any of the things I said. I wasn't trying to make out that you were silly or anything like that. I just think the lack of gun control is silly. You know what I mean? But yeah, anyway, Biden had a second half. Pete made a really good point about climate change, in that people are talking about all these different hallmarks or areas or timelines for climate change. Like, oh, we've got to change this by 2035. We've got to change this by 2040. We've got to change that by this. And he made a really good point, which is that the time is now. We've got to make a change. We've got to put a president in power that believes in climate change. You know what I mean? And so the deadline for climate change is now, I think, was his line. And I feel that that's a good little capture, good little soundbite that his team will be pushing out there on their ads for the next few weeks. He's really going after that middle vote. Like, he was really going after the middle. If you're not big on billionaires like Bloomberg, but you're also not big on social collectivism like Sanders, he wants your vote. Pete wants your vote. I would probably, based off this debate alone, say of the moderates, right? I would probably prefer Warren at this stage, but I don't want a moderate. I want Sanders, because radical change is we're capable of having radical change in this country. We are capable, we're pliable. We are a nation that can bend as we need to. We have done. Read a history book, like we can change as we need to, and I would like to change because I think it's evident that we need to now, and I think that Sanders shows that we can make small tweaks while still being the best country in the world to make us an even better best country in the whole world. You know what I mean? Bloomberg said a couple of times he's the only one who started a business, which is true, absolutely. Unless you, like I do, subscribe to the theory that a political brand is somewhat of a business. Like Bernie Sanders has had to work on his brand for good old 60, 70 years almost before he could run for president, and he's had to make sure that branding is on point, so it's like while they may not have made a business, the individual act of becoming a career politician is somewhat like running a business. But I'll give him that. He's the only one that owns a business that was on the stage. Klobuchar said something along the lines of we should have universal childcare, which I didn't realize you guys didn't have. Like we have that in Australia. That's a thing. Like if you want to fucking go to work, like how expensive? It's probably just not even cost effective to put your kids in childcare if you need to go to work. You know what I mean? If you're going to work so you can pay the bills, what sense is there in it being another bill to have someone look after your kids? You know what I mean? Like that's weird to me that that's paid for by the parent. Like, what is the point of having a government if not to pay for fucking childcare and healthcare? You know what I mean? Like, I get it. It was so the king would fuck off and stop taking money away, and that was the main reason, right? It was everyone wanted to keep their own shit, and that's why we're a country. But like, fuck me, childcare. Like, how is that a thing that is decided upon by wealth? I don't understand that. I worked in childcare back home. It was you were either getting the family tax benefit A or family tax benefit B, or you were under the childcare subsidy. There were 3 different avenues depending on the type of job you had, how many incomes were in the household, like all that sort of stuff. All the T's were crossed, all I's were dotted to make sure that people weren't abusing the system if they had access to pay for it themselves. But that no child would be left behind, right? And that's a little pejorative in this country, isn't it? No child left behind. But $400 a paycheck. Holy shit. Single father of 3 paying fucking $400 in a paycheck, $800 per month. How did you eat, bro? How did you eat? And that's not even factoring in, like, you're having to pay that bill to earn the money to pay the rent. Like, that's another logical fallacy that I just don't understand. That, like, Americans go, oh, that's socialism. And I go, no, that's tax. That's the purpose of tax. That's why tax exists. That shit, like roads, schools, hospitals, childcare, education, these are the things we get taxed for. Like, fuck, man. I didn't get that. Like, when she said we should have universal healthcare, I was like, why don't you already? It makes no sense to me. You know what I mean? Like, how can you make sure your weakest link isn't rusty and corroded if you don't even have childcare? Like, what do the single parents do? What are this, like, you know what I mean? Like, it just, in a world when we're spending how much on the military, we can have at least one of these things. We could have gun control or healthcare or universal childcare or whatever it was we were talking about here that was fucking getting my goat up. You know what I mean? Like, fucking, I don't know. We could have all of this stuff. We could afford it. We can afford it. We're the richest country on the planet, and we're the only country on the planet that doesn't have it. It's weird. Blows my mind. But yeah, where are we again? We should have universal childcare. Absolutely, we should. It was like, I'm not even a millionaire, let alone a billionaire. He was the only one on the stage that wasn't a millionaire. I found that an interesting fact. Bernie called out Bloomberg on the money he made as well, because Bloomberg came out saying he made a shitload of money, and he said like 4 or 5 times that was like he like he said, oh yeah, I've made a lot of money and I give a lot of money away and blah blah blah. And Bernie called him out on one point and was like, you didn't make that money, your workers did. What do they have to say about it, right? Which is, I do subscribe a bit to the belief that profit, I don't believe profit is theft. I believe profit is theft in more of a way than tax is theft. Tax is not theft. Tax is a mutually agreed upon fucking thing we all do or all should do and we should all benefit from, like But anyway, that's another discussion, right? Like I feel like profit, if you're paying someone below minimum wage, if your employee is working over 36 hours for you every week and is still on food stamps because they don't have enough money to live if it's not a living wage, if they're working 36 hours in your company and they don't have enough money to pay their rent and buy all their food, they're on food stamps, right? You're a shit human. Pay your fucking workers more. Like and if you can't afford to, don't be in business. They can and I know that the response to that is, oh well, then they don't have the job at all. They'll have a job somewhere else because somewhere like the I don't believe that the jobs disappear when billionaires stop being allowed to take advantage of poor people. You know, I used to say all the time in Australia we have very strict and good minimum wage laws. You know, I think the minimum wage in Australia at the moment is something like $23 an hour. Don't quote me on that. Let me Google it. It's dependent on age. If you're under age, like 14 to 18 is different. And then 18 to 21 is different. And then 21 and up is different. And if you have kids, no matter how old you are, it's different. And let me have a look. Minimum wage in Australia. $19.49 per hour. Yep. All right. So that's for a 38-hour week. If you are fully independent, like if you're still at home and under 18, and it goes up from there. So under 18, 19 and a half bucks an hour, right? And so I understand that I am coming from a place of privilege in the sense that everyone that has a job, everyone that wants a job has a job and all that sort of stuff. And Australia has outsourced its working class to places like Bangladesh and Zimbabwe and Japan in the sense of its auto industry and stuff like that. Like it's it is like we outsourced our menial labor sort of jobs, and menial industries and all that sort of stuff. An iconic car brand in Australia, it was the first brand of car to be developed and built in Australia, the first Australian-owned brand of car. It's called a Holden, right? The brand Holden. We got bought out by GM Motors in like the 1930s or something, still practiced under the name of Holden, still did all the things it did as Holden and stuff. It was just owned by GM. I think it was 2008, they stopped manufacturing cars in Australia because it came too expensive, and they just started making Holden cars in the regular GM factories, which I presume are in Japan or Taiwan or somewhere they can afford to, somewhere where they don't have the labor laws we do, and it's acceptable to pay some poor cunt like 50 cents an hour, which again, I think is just as morally reprehensible as paying someone 50 cents an hour here. I think that minimum wage laws should be enforced globally. The American military, what good is spending all this money if we're not going to go and make our will known and make it so that, the poor cunts in fucking Chinese sweatshops aren't making the Nike shoes that we're then able to sell for cheaper. You know what I mean? But it's interesting in that sense. I don't understand like the amount that gets taxed. It blew my mind there was no childcare, and it blew my mind that Bernie would openly, like, especially when like he straight out got called a communist at one point by Bloomberg, which I thought was fucking ridiculous, and just showed how aged and dated Bloomberg's whole philosophy on things is, right, and was. But in the same debate as being called a communist, to say to a billionaire, you didn't earn that money, your workers did, was pretty fucking ballsy. You know what I mean? Bernie calls Bloomberg a communist. Warren comes into bat with some logic and reason. Fuck, he's a product of a petri dish, I wrote, which I think is another good little one-liner that I wrote there, talking about Mike Bloomberg. And Warren, came into bat for Bernie as well, being like, social welfare isn't. My laptop battery's dying, so I'm going to wrap this up real quick. But no, I'm not. I'm going to fucking put it on charge. Let me see. Bear with me. Give me 2 seconds. All right, we're going to turn around, I think. We are. We're going to turn around to here because this charger cord won't reach the whole way. Now it will. There we go. I'm going to just hold that there. All right, we're facing this way now because I had to put my laptop on charge. Hope you all can still hear me and see me and stuff. Can you fucking... Cord's being annoying now, but oh well. It is what it is. Right, so where was I? I was talking about Biden, I think. Where are we? Bloomberg calls Bernie a communist. Yeah, Warren came into bat basically being like social welfare isn't communism, so don't be a dick and pretend it is, which I thought was interesting. Mike Bloomberg is a product of a petri dish. I was happy with that. And Bernie raised a really good point that socialism for the rich is apparently okay, but socialism for the poor is not. We're perfectly happy to bail out Wall Street, but we weren't happy to bail out, poor independent working families. I think it's cutting in and out here because of the charging, which is annoying. But yeah, it's interesting to me, you know what I mean? But where are we? Next page. Finally onto the third page, right? And tell me if this being on charge is cutting in and out, because I'll just like pause the stream for 10 minutes and charge it, if it's turned the stream a bit shitty because it's on charge, let me know. But yeah, Bloomberg said the senator next to me. I mentioned this earlier. He said the senator next to stumbled upon who the fuck he was standing next to. I was like, the senator next to me, and Elizabeth Warren was quite rightly said, my name's Elizabeth, champ. Biden and Bernie wrote books for their money. That's another thing as well. Like Pete kept bringing up that everyone on the stage was a millionaire except for him, right? Everyone was saying, "Oh, everyone there is a millionaire except for me," and Biden pointed out, well, Bernie and himself are only millionaires because they wrote best-selling books that did really, really well. That's different from running a company and like taking profit from the workers. Like that's not the same thing. You know what I mean? And where are we? All I'm seeing is kangaroos. Bloomberg could buy 1 million kangaroos. He probably could, There's a lot of kangaroos in Australia. They're a pest, actually. They get most things that get hunted in Australia are either kangaroos, camels, or foxes. Camels, incidentally, we have the largest wild camel population in the entire world. Introduced species. Guy named John Horrocks. I have a video about him in my history playlist. Camels. We have the largest wild camel population in the world, and they have only been there like 150 odd years, if that. It's a funny story. Basically, I mean, you should go and watch after this video. Go and click into my history video. It was one of the first videos I came up with on YouTube. But it's a video. It's called the Murder of John Horrocks. Right? John Horrocks was this explorer. He lived in Egypt for a part of his life, and he knew that camels were really good and well suited to the desert. And there was a desert in Australia that was being explored and that he was an explorer of. And he was like, you know what? I'm really sick of having to stop to refill my fucking horse every 2 or 3 hours with water. I would rather refuel a camel every 2 or 3 fucking days with water because they can store it in their hump and all that sort of shit. And so, yeah, he brought a whole bunch over and they fucked like crazy. And now we have the wildest camel population in the world. Obviously, there were some steps in between there, but, it's a thing. Even funner fact than that is the way John Horrocks died was he was shot by a camel. Not even kidding. Harry the Camel was his name. He was infamous. Long story short, there was a camel on his fucking journey with him, and the guy was hiding behind the camel to shoot a dingo to make some food or something, and he was reloading his fucking gun, and the camel made a noise and kicked his back foot, hit the bottom of the gun, shot him through his face, right? So the camel wasn't sitting there going, oh, fucking... or anything. But it was still an interesting way to go, no? I think this is cutting in and out again. That's annoying. But yeah, guns don't kill people. Camels with guns kill people. That's fucking funny. Anyway, as I was saying, right? So don't fucking cut in and out on me now, you piece of shit. Do what you're told. Do what you're told, you stupid cord. We good? Are you experiencing any cutting in and out? Because if it's just me, I will stop being a drama queen about it, right? But anyway, check out that video in my history playlist if you want, because I think it's funny. But yeah, Pete was asked a question on do you think that people like Bloomberg shouldn't spend their money on the Democratic Party? And he donates to the Democratic Party a lot, so why shouldn't he? If that makes sense. And it's really interesting because Pete was like, definitely spend his money on beating Trump. He's just not the guy to do it. So it was effectively, Pete was saying, like, I agree with you. Let's fuck off Bernie. Let's get rid of Bernie. I agree with everything you've said in this debate. Let's not let Bernie be the nomination, but I would like your money, please. That's effectively what Pete's closing statement was about Bloomberg, as far as I'm concerned. Biden went hard against McConnell as well, against Mitch McConnell, which I found really, really interesting. He was sort of the only guy to openly call him out, and everyone else was like, oh, you got to work with him. But Biden was like, fuck him. No, you don't. Let's just fuck him off, which I thought was interesting. Biden did his come on thing a lot, I mentioned earlier. Went hard against Klobuchar, but mostly Bernie and Bloomberg. Klobuchar had one good line against Pete, which was, I wish everyone was as perfect as you because you've memorized some great talking points, but blah, 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 which I thought was really interesting. Her finishing statement was, what unites us is more than what separates us, which was nice and fluffy, but not really the theme of the debate. Everyone was sort of at each other's throats for the debate, and she was sort of like the nice, the mum of the loser kid that's trying to make everyone happy instead of just accepting that her kid sucks at hockey. You know what I mean? But yeah, I don't know. She was weird. She rubbed me up the wrong way as well in her too niceness. And where are we? Closing statements were mostly fluff, except there was some commotion about Biden during his closing statement. Like he started off talking about something. I'm just going to take this charger out again for a sec. It's charged a little bit. We're not going to be talking ages longer, but I'll charge it again in a sec because it was shitting me. Like there was some commotion during his final statement, right? And it was like people started, like I presume there were signs and people were making a carry on, right? Because the debate, like the moderator made a specific point of being like, all right, sorry guys, yep, we're just going to get security to deal with that. And the cameras made a specific point to look straight at Biden and straight at that guy and then straight at Biden again. And I think Bloomberg, somebody off camera, not that was on the debate stage, to Biden's right, and it was a male voice, so that could pretty much have only been Bloomberg, I'm fairly certain, but it may have just been a trick of the mic, it could have been somewhere else. And yeah, it's 20+1 here as well. I'm hopefully going to sleep all day. But it was really interesting because like there was this like hysterical fucking screeching off screen about something about Biden. Like I'm sure we'll learn about what their political thing was supposed to be about and what stance they're having. And like I just got to say, right, if you're the type of person that's going to go somewhere like the debate and engage with politics enough to understand what the debate is and that it's a significant point of political standing, right? You should also be of significant enough intelligence to understand that hysterically screeching about whatever the fuck it was they were screeching about at that point is not going to be effective for your cause. People are just going to think you're a fuckwit and in turn think anyone who thinks like the way you think based off what you're shouting is also a fuckwit and acts in the same immature manner as you do. And it's how the left shoots themselves in the foot in this country all the time. Guaranteed that chick screaming or the chicks screaming or the feminine dudes, like it sounded very female, sounded feminine, the screeching that was occurring at Biden, guaranteed that their talking points will now be a bigger deal than whatever fucking Biden was talking about. But it'll be from the perspective of, well, they're fucking ridiculous and they don't understand how this works, I guarantee you, whatever the fuck they were talking about was spoken about by Elizabeth Warren or Pete Buttigieg or Bernie Sanders, right? In official capacity on the debate stage like they're fucking supposed to. It's like you're just as bad as the people protesting outside abortion clinics if you're going to protest at a debate like that, like there's a time and place for civil discussion. This is not it, well, it is it, but you're not it, you know what I mean? Like you fucking get your candidate to say what you want them to. Don't just scream at the ones that are on stage, but Jesus Christ, you've got to get up at 5. Man, I'll probably be sleeping at noon. That's rough. I apologize that you have to deal with that. I'm sorry for keeping you up so late. Where are we? Yeah, Klobuchar was I wish everyone was as perfect as you. You've memorized good talking points, but blah blah. Biden brings up guns again, second time, the only one, and that's what I finished my notes on. That's the end of my 3 pages of notes. It only took me 2 hours and 20 minutes to get there. But yeah, it was an interesting debate. I thought it was probably the most interesting for me thus far in the debate. in the debate stage. You know what I mean? Like the only time I have ever like actively punched someone unprovoked in my entire life, right? Like I've punched some people, don't get me wrong. I've been involved in fist fights. I've played sports. I've been a vocal political dude most of my life, even when I didn't quite know what I thought on topics. I spoke before I thought a lot as a youth. And I've been in some fights, like I was raised by a woman who had many gay friends during the significant spongy years of my life. So as a teenager, I was quite flamboyant, and a lot of people thought I was gay, and so I got gay bashed a fair bit as well. But the only time I have ever instigated a fight, started a fight of my own volition, and punched someone in the face was outside an abortion clinic, and this abortion clinic was also it was the medical center that I went to and had been diagnosed. Like I was on suicide watch there, and then I got diagnosed as bipolar, and there was a whole bunch of fucking nasty shit. And I was there, right? And I'd had a real rough therapy session one day, and there was this old fucking cunt. Like I still remember what he looked like, right? I still remember he looked like a garden gnome. Picture it like your cliche garden gnome, but with like extra wrinkles, sort of thing, right? He would have been in his 60s. I don't fucking know. But he was legitimately like pushing a fucking placard into this. Fuck knows how old she was. She was a teenager, but into this girl's face, and I just like in the moment just saw red. And like I pushed the sign away and like made eye contact with him and said, "Come on, bro, don't be a fucking cunt." And he said, "What, you think murdering babies doesn't make someone a cunt?" And like yelled over my shoulder to the girl that she was going to be murdered. Like fuck knows what she was even there for. It wasn't just an abortion clinic. It was a fucking women's health clinic. But anyway, yelled over my shoulder to tell her that she was a murderer, and I just fucking punched him in the face. Because I was like, yeah, nah, like just yeah, nah, bro, yeah, nah. But yeah, I don't advocate violence. Violence doesn't solve anything. It does sometimes, actually. I'm not gonna lie. But in that situation, it didn't. He kept doing his thing. He called the police. I got in a bit of trouble because the doctor's place had my fucking identification and me on camera. I didn't get charged, thankfully. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here. You guys know I didn't. But yeah, closing statement wise, I think for each of them, Bloomberg, wet blanket, missed your opportunity to come out swinging, came out mostly defending himself against being a billionaire and saying stop and frisk worked. Like the ends justifies the means, like wanker. Warren came out a lot harder than she has in previous debates, came out swinging, defended her, like interrupted the most, tied with Buttigieg for interrupting. And I thought that was different to usual. She did a little bit of the wrong that Trump did, if that makes sense. And Bloomberg, was nice to some women as well. Thank you for throwing that in there, Xander. Sanders was typical Sanders. He got asked a bunch of questions at the start of the debate, but not at the end of the debate where it really matters. He didn't interrupt much, but he did get to respond to people who outright named him in things, right, which was interesting and good. I still think Sanders is the lead. Like Sanders is the current front runner, and people just keep referring to Sanders as if he's not. Like they go, "Oh well, Sanders is the front runner, but if you combine everyone else, right, that is a higher amount than Sanders." And it's like that's not how that works. But okay, twist whatever narrative you like, Biden didn't get much play in the first half of the debate, got a lot of play in the second half of the debate, didn't interrupt as well, responded a couple of times, but it was a bit of a wet blanket. It looks it looks like he thinks it's like like he's just laissez-faire on the fucking debate stage, like it's a shoe-in, it's going to happen automatically. He thinks it's a fait accompli or whatever it's called, like he's already won. He doesn't need to debate. Buttigieg campaigned real hard for the middle vote. He came out strongly and aggressively to be like, yo, if you're not a fan of billionaires like Bloomberg, you're not a fan of extremists like Sanders, but you're not also going to vote for a woman, then vote for me, right? Because I'm Buttigieg. And I think that's what a lot of it comes down to with Sanders as well, is the fact that she's a woman and she knows it, and she pushes the fact that she's a woman and she knows it. And I think that's what lost Hillary Clinton the vote. in a large capacity was because she alienated a lot of her male voters in that sense. But I also think that there are a lot of women that have been alienated as voters for the last 150 odd years. So maybe it's about time. I don't know. I don't know where I sit with Warren, but I like her more than Buttigieg. I like Sanders the most, though. But yeah, Buttigieg came out strong here. He was asked the second most amount of questions. He interrupted 8 fucking times, which is the most amount. He responded 4 times, which admittedly was the least amount, but that was because he wasn't responding officially in any capacity. He was just interrupting cunts and talking over them like a smug cunt. And Klobuchar was like a cup of water. You know, she was all right. She'd probably do the job, but I'd rather Code Red or Mountain Dew of any kind, you know. Like, she's just bland and boring. But my battery's dying again, and I don't want to deal with the fucking quirks and stuff. But what does it say? Sanders is in front of the pack, but Dems will never let him have it. That's it, exactly. Dems will fuck him over, and they shouldn't, but they will. I'm going to move you a little bit closer so I can read some comments while it's also on charge, and I won't mind it flickering as much, you know what I mean? Get into that hole. There we go. And charge. And we're charging. That's good. He's the front of the pack, but the Dems will never let him have it. It'll go to a contested primary, and they'll bring in the super delegates for Bloomberg. I swear to God, if Bloomberg wins the nomination, like, you just... Like, at that point, surely, like, at that point, I stop becoming an advocate for gun control, and I start becoming a fierce advocate for the mob. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if you're coming out and you're going, we have to have guns in case of tyrannical government, and the DNC screw Bernie for the second time in 8 years, I'm calling upon that fucking well-regulated militia because we need you. You know what I mean? Like, this is your time to shine at that point. At the point where we can see clear, absolute corruption in our government process, that's tyranny. That's what you're here for. That's what you signed up for in your well-regulated militia, you know? Like, I'll come and borrow one of your 150 guns, Xander. You know what I mean? I'll sign up with you. You can teach me how to shoot it. I want a fancy old musket. I'm a historian. I like old stuff, you know? Or even a fucking cool, slick, like matte black one. Nothing glossy or something, you know? Like, something... I'm teetering on the edge, you know? I feel like we should have gun control, but we need politician control first. Anyway, I'm going to search. I'm going to... lol, if you pass the background check. I'm going to go back up, right up to the top and read some comments because there were some fun ones in there. Where are we? Aren't penguins in the South Pole, opposite side of the world? All right, so I can't get to a lot of the comments because they've gone out of the thing. I'll reply to them later on. But the top comment I can get to is from Lance that says, aren't penguin in the South Pole, opposite side of the world? I guess so. Only 1/3 of Americans attend college. We need to change that to help people adapt and get better life outcomes. Absolutely. That's interesting. Especially with all the sports scholarships. I didn't think it was 1/3. That's a small amount of educated people. I understand there's this whole like beef with education here in this country. A lot of people don't like it, and a lot of people think education's the reason people aren't smart. Doesn't make sense to me. But yeah, that's interesting. The reason Japan refused to invade US soil because the emperor said there's a gun behind every blade of grass. Fucking A, that makes sense, right? That's a thing. Except that was in I presume 30s or 40s, right? Like, that was before America had drones and had used drones and had, you know, like, they've got a more scary military now than a more scary populace. I mean, don't get me wrong, some Vietnamese farmers fucking beat yous, which is interesting, but it's you know, that's a different era and different tactics as well, you know, so that's a different conversation as well. Not according to Morgan Freeman. Don't know what you were talking about. Was probably fucking stupid. Japan, please don't invade. I'm so scared. You would have been back in the day, bro. You would have been back in the day. Like, honestly, like you had a shogun and a fucking samurai coming at you. You'd have been fucking shitting your pants. You would have been shitting your pants. I would have been too. And can you stop cutting in and out? Fuck it. There we go. It charged for a couple of seconds again. That was annoying. But yeah, you would have been... Japan, please don't invade. I'm so scared. You would have been fucking scared back in the day. Guarantee it. But I tell you what, like, fucking America bombed the masculinity out of that fucking country. Let me tell you. Like, drop the nuclear bomb and they've been fucking playing with Hello Kitties ever since. You know what I mean? Like, but anyway, also we fortified West Coast. Yeah. That was World War II. Most of our military was in Europe. They could have done a lot of damage. Absolutely, they could have. Gun to protect yourself? Yes. 120 guns to protect yourself? No. That's interesting. Pacific campaign. Shannon, hey babe. That entire movie cracks me up, babe. We should find it and stream it tonight. Might be on Netflix. Team America World Police. Thank you for reminding me what movie I was talking about. I haven't watched that in years. I love how they did that, like the Thunderbird style fucking animation. It was cool. And what is it? I'm a huge dick, and they're pussies, and sometimes pussies become assholes, but they both need to be fucked by dicks or something. I can't remember. It was a good fucking movie. Interesting, funny movie. But anyway, huge multinational operation fighting the Japanese. Yeah, that's true. Like, wasn't it Japan and Germany v everyone? Like Rocky Four. That's a great movie. It is a great movie. Is that the one with the Russian dude? I think that's the Russian one, right? That's Rocky Four. Anyway, that's a great movie. I collect guns. Always been an interest of mine. I collect weapons of all types, but guns and swords are my favorites. Oh, I missed the swords part. What type of swords do you have? That's cool. Different time, different discussion. Jumping on a different live stream. I'm trying to chase my battery and hope it doesn't die, right? Bernie wins unless the DNC cheats him. Absolutely. It's hilarious, CJ. I wonder what was hilarious. Send a tiny 5-6 or whatever, dude. Drone wars are so boring they don't even make the news. Well, like that's because the news media is run by the same people fucking operating drones, right? That's really not hard to figure that out. To fight a 19 roided dude, Russia done. Lol. Yeah, okay, cool. That's Rocky Four. I'll give you that. Most of the military would defect if the government tried to turn against their own people. Yeah, okay, that's a valid point, but also kind of proves mine in why the civilian base doesn't need a weapon and why it doesn't need a gun. You know, like why the wider base civilianry don't need guns because you trust your military more than you trust your government, and they'll come in with a coup d'état. People say that their guns are to protect themselves from the government, have sexual intercourse. All right, that's an interesting perspective to have. Tony, you make about as much sense as a half of a penny. Lol, but get off my guns, Aussie. Bite me. Your First Amendment says I can say your Second Amendment's the worst one. Hey, Penny, sweet. Government would definitely beat militias. Absolutely. If they actually tried to remove guns, it would legitimately start a civil war. I don't think it would. I don't think it would. I don't think it would. I think if you civil discussion like we've had, and people consistently dedicated to having these discussions as they're crammed through falsely through Parliament, I think you're not giving enough America enough credit when you say that it would start a civil war. I think people would get it. They just need to have it explained to them properly. You know. Where are we? Hank down the street is going to shoot down the Blackhawks that come for him. Yeah, right. Exactly. Like I'm gonna get my fucking cool. Like yeah, exactly. You know. Like anyway, Second Amendment was made so long ago. How could they possibly imagine a magazine of 25 spitting it? Exactly. Tony, this Aussie knows more about your country than you do. Ponder that, Tony. Yeah, suck my dick. I need guns for the zombie apocalypse and my 2-bit chumps trying to break into my house. Bruh, like I don't know who you think you are or what type of mob boss you think you are, but no one's coming to fucking rob your house. Like, fucking move out of the crack area you live in if somebody's climbing in your window to steal fucking money for drugs, you know? Like, anyway, shut the fuck up with your gun shit. Good stuff, Lance. I agree. Goddamn welfare zombies. That's it. I'd still be fun to move over that way, though. Life experience eventually. Yeah, we should. I think that was when I was talking about Denmark or Norway. Fucking oath. Absolutely. Norway's beautiful. I mean, so is Denmark. I don't know why I said it like that. But anyway, the American people see us on the news is not the America most of us live in, thankfully. Exactly, which is good. And it's like I have to defend my reasons for being in America because that like gun-toting Hicksville sort of America caricature. Yeah, I had trouble saying that word. That is like brought upon. Why is that? Focus, you piece of shit. There we go. That caricature is not real, you know. Not the foxes, lol. America has always been great except for slavery and segregation. Fuck those parts. That's it. That's an interesting perspective to have. I watched this video the other day. A guy named Daryl, what's his surname? Williams, I think. He's a black guy that goes to KKK rallies. And Daryl Davis, that was it. Yeah, thanks, babe. And he said something like the KKK is as American as apple pie, which I thought was an interesting perspective. And he's gonna open up a KKK museum because he's got a whole bunch of robes that dudes have given him once they've left the KKK and stuff. And that's a fascinating conversation. Again, for another video. I'd like to be an advocate knowing how Australia took that crap away. What happened? Less died. Exactly right. Like it's like way less people die. We haven't had a gun massacre since. Oh well, actually, we technically last year or the year before we had our first mass shooting since the gun laws were put in. It was 3 people died, and the media pushed it out there as this, oh, it's mass shooting just like in the US. Like, it was some fucking stupid cunt shot his kid and then his wife and then himself. Like, that is not the same as a mass murder in my instance, like that's a murder suicide and it's reprehensible and it's horrible, but it's not the same thing as going out into the public and shooting people, I don't think, and I think it's a different, people conflate those things and they made it sound like Australia's gun control didn't work because this guy had his hands on a gun, but it's like he was a cop, like he was a fucking police officer. That's why he had his hands on his gun. Maybe if we actually made sure that police officers didn't have the capacity to wield the power in the way they do in such a cunty fashion. Something like, and again, not even worried if this pisses Australians off. I've got the First Amendment here in America to fucking back me up. So fucking sue me, cunts. See what you can do. You're not going to be able to do anything, right? 72% of police families in Australia suffer from domestic violence. 72%. That's that's 3/4. That's more than 2/3, right? Like, cops are fucking scummy cunts in Australia, and we don't need them because nobody has guns. We can sort our own mess out. Someone does something stupid, they cop a punch in the face for being a shit cunt. And I don't have to be scared that person's going to fucking shoot me. He doesn't have to be scared that I'm going to shoot him, but I'm going to punch him when he deserves a punch. You know what I mean? And the police force are effectively useless. But yeah, anyway, the majority in I read that comment. That's a thing. But Fox News told me that the lazy liberals were coming for my guns. Yes, that's a filibuster. Australia had this Tony Macaroni guy is like dedicated to being a troll on my feed, I reckon. Like, I feel like there's an intelligent, reasonable person somewhere on the inside there, Tony, and you want you want people to laugh with you, or you want people to be on your side, and that's why you make these trolly comments. But you actually just want to be understood and you want to understand people. And so I feel bad for you, man. Like, I actually pity you in the way that you feel trolling is something that you have to do to get your point across. Like, you are as valid a human as the rest of us. We would listen to you and discuss things with you, just like I did with Xander, if you were going to present them in a similar way to how Xander did. You know what I mean? Like, but saying things like Australia had unprecedented levels of bamboo, spear, and sword attacks, you're just silly, bro. You're just like, it's silly. And I pity you because I can see that you're trying to have intellectual discussion every now and then, but your humor's just way off the bat, and you don't actually know what you're talking about almost across the board in everything we've spoken about, So it's like, I think maybe, I mean, judging from what you've said previously about how you've got other kids and how they're all adults and all that sort of stuff, like I think maybe you're stuck in your ways and there's not much hope for you and there's not much change for you on the horizon. But I refuse to believe that about anybody. I think we're all able to be rehabilitated. So maybe just, try and change your ways, bro. Honestly, Pastor Boy, shut up. That's mad. Rad J, I see we disagree on most everything, but you're still cool by me. Smiley face. I like it. I would never say suicide is okay. Yeah, that's a good point. Sorry if I said it was. Worth saving, absolutely. Thanks, Lance. I'm saying it's 2 different issues. Gun violence is a social issue. Suicide is a mental health issue. Yeah, we went through that. This dude is a great man. I can see it even through a virtual man. Thanks, mate. When they conflate them, they take away a lot of the important aspects of both. That's true. It's true, but also, like, no one issue exists in a vacuum. You know what I mean? Like, there's multifaceted things. There's nuance. We can walk and chew gum at the same time. All that sort of stuff. I know you know that, though. I'm not trying to, be condescending or belittle you. Fuck me, it's 1:45. Jules is a multinational heroic squid. Thank you. I just want to go to Buffalo so I can sit Indian style this guy and chat football. Yeah, absolutely, bro. Let's sit on a fucking, like, absolutely. That'd be mad. I'm having trouble exactly what I mean in small snippets of type. That's a thing. Foosball is the devil. No, it's not. You just don't like watching it as much as I do. Yeah, I know. It's from Waterboy or something, isn't it? Yeah. But anyway, let's convert the US into a giant bouncy house with cake and balloons and bunnies. Fuck, that'd be nice. The medulla oblongata. Is that the place in the brain where we think addiction is? Is that what I was talking about? Okay, Tony, that'd be rad, actually. Yeah, that's what I said. That'd be fucking sick. Don't have to drive anywhere. We'll just bounce places. Like, fucking, that'd be sick. Lol, angry cat. That must have been when I was moving Molly. Jules, you should coordinate a meet and greet one day in Buffalo. Yeah, absolutely. If I've got enough Buffalo area sort of fans, I feel like most of my views come from Middle America or the West Coast, which I think is interesting, but probably has a lot more to do with how I upload a lot of videos at fucking midnight my time, as opposed to the time you're supposed to, which is like 6 or 7. But yeah, no, I'm sure once I get big enough and I wouldn't be embarrassed by one person turning up as opposed to like 5 or 10, I'll definitely do that. Toxoplasmosis, we should ban cats. Okay, you were talking about toxoplasmosis the other day, babe. That's why I do the litter all the time. Dr. Bruce Alexander, maybe that could be it. Actually, toxo can be so. Yeah, don't eat cat's ass. I won't. Interesting point. In 18 yet? No, we read that one. You won't talk crap to a cat's face, Tony. You'd be judged so hard. I love that. Kitty litter sandwich. What movie was that? Little Rascals. Automatic. I'm going to look into the history of automatic weapons. That's cool. I said oregano trail. Fucking oregano trail. Oregon trail. Not oregano. Just for everyone playing along at home if you're still watching. Common Sense 2020. Have Asperger's and autism in the family. That shit you can explode. No way in hell should anyone ever have one. Right? Exactly, right? And in America, you literally have to have, not sure you need much. We have those regulations in place. A lot of folks don't realize the hoops you have to go through in the hoop. Yeah, we had that chat. I'm going to skip past the gun control stuff. But I was going to say go to Texas. No, go after me a pistol. I've done gun sales. I'm going to move past the guns and guns and guns. Cannabis is also medicine. Fucking 80s. Gun stores are also an issue. Legalize cannabis. Drug dealers are the gateway. Fucking A. If you buy a gun online from a dealer, you still have to fill out a background check at your local licensed dealer, and the gun must be picked up from that dealer only after you pass the check. Again, we've been past that. We've spoken about that. That's fine. Weed is a gateway to the refrigerator. Hardy ha ha. Sounds like reefer madness to me. Just throwing that out there. Xander, you're right, but there are other easier ways to get them. More gun stuff. Scrolling. Definitely have valid points. I'll say that bit again as well, though, because I like hearing that my points are valid. If we disagree, we can talk about football. That's the thing. Back to the XFL now. Guns. No, yeah. The Revolutionary War was literally started because the British tried to take away arms after the Boston Tea Party. ARE is a brand, not a gun type. It stands for Armalite Rifle. Obviously, I'm a conservative. Lol, big surprise. I know. That's fine, bro. I'm conservative in a lot of spaces and a lot of senses as well. But before it became a term that was used widely by people that are assholes, I used to say that I was socially liberal and economically conservative, but I am economically conservative in the sense that I believe you should spend money on your society to make sure that you're not spending more money on their medical bills. But you don't spend jack shit on society's medical bills here in America. So, maybe that's a different topic to have as well. Confederate flag is hate, not heritage. That's it. Like, people say to me, oh, it was a war over states' rights. And it's like, yeah, states' right to what? Own slaves, you dense cunt. Like, fuck. Anyway, that's called a combat carbine, not an assault rifle. It's both due to rifle. My phone is malfunctioning. I'll be back. The AR-15 is a functional M4 stand-in. Look, to be honest with you, I don't know what either of you are fucking talking about, but I'll back you both in. I'll believe either of you. Also, we were trained not to use 3-round bursts, so oh, wow, yeah, nice. Big Ben, but my favorite player of all time is Troy. He was in the fucking C Gap. Troy Palamu. He was the one in the C Gap, right? In the fucking C Gap. But hit in the head and turned into a fuckwit. I can't stop laughing. I'll be sending you either a hat or a terrible towel soon. That's fucking sick. I haven't got a towel of any team yet. That's mad. If you ever want to shoot, let me know. Come to PA. I'll hook you up. Where is that? Pennsylvania? Philadelphia? The fuck's PA? I don't know. That's interesting. Maybe I will. I've shot guns in Texas for target practice a couple of times with friends. It was fun, but loud as fuck. Yeah, I imagine it would hurt your hearing. Shot a 10 gauge and a 13 gauge shotgun. That's it. And as with Shannon, same setting. Yeah. Good conversation, my dude. Even if we agree to disagree on some things. Thanks for that. Thank you. Not at all. I enjoyed it. I think that's when I was apologizing if I came off like a dick. We have a good answer for clean energy, but nuclear energy has a bad rap. But I think it's the best choice we have at the moment. I mean, in terms of energy, not going to go down that rabbit hole because I've only got a tiny little bit of battery left. But I will do an energy discussion as well because I feel like solar or wind farms or the equivalent of wind farms in the ocean, capitalizing on ocean currents, a combination of those three things is less dangerous than nuclear, but potentially maybe not quite as efficient. So I don't know. It's an interesting discussion to have, and I don't know where I land on that. So that'll be a fun one for us to have because maybe you'll help me land on it. National Squid Party. Fucking hell, I'd run if I was allowed. If I was allowed to run for president in this country, I would. But I'm not because I wasn't born here. So maybe in fucking 20 years' time, I'll just run for senator or something or whatever fucking what's his name, Arnie, whatever level he got to the highest level that he could without running for presidency because he couldn't because he wasn't born here. I'll do an Arnie. I'll do that. Nobody's voting for a cunt with hand tats in this country. It's not going to happen. Don't worry. I have personal issue with Warren. I'm Native American. Seneca Nation and her Indian heritage bullshit turned me off for good. Hey, I have a Seneca hat. A Seneca beanie, actually, and I completely understand why that would have fucked you off, and annoyed you, because, there's nothing worse than I've got Indian heritage, I've got Indian, what did she have? Something like 2.4%? Fucking funniest moment of the fucking entire Democratic campaign, the whole process so far has been Donald Trump calling that bitch Pocahontas. It's fucking funny. But anyway, bro, we don't have shit when it comes to labor benefits. I think that was when I was talking about the childcare thing. It smashed me in the face when I didn't realize that even childcare wasn't government funded. What does the government do here? Really, other than organize the military, and point fingers and yell at each other. What is the actual purpose of the government if not to provide that sort of social safety net? But anyway, almost half your paycheck went to fucking daycare. Ate a lot of hot dogs and ramen. I can hear that. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you were, yeah, as you said, granted, I was paying for 3 kids, but still, it's so fucking what? You need, it takes a village to raise a child, Um, Bernie's consistent old school man of the people. Xander says, I liked Gabbard, though. I may have voted for Dem in 2020 if they gave her a fighting chance. Look, I feel like she did well and she was doing well, but as soon as she switched narrative from talking about the issues that matter to talking about Google not putting her ad up at the right time and suing Clinton for calling her a Russian asset or something. I hope she fucking wins that, and I hope she sues Clinton for all she's worth, and Clinton is fucked over by it. Absolutely, don't get me wrong. That's Merlin, by the way, or Binksy over there. One of the 4 cats. But I feel like she did herself a disservice by stopping herself from talking about the issues and starting talking about other shit. You know what I mean? They played the man, not the ball, and she fell for it straight up and started playing the man instead of the ball as well. And then the ball was too far away that she couldn't catch up anymore. I thought y'all could settle and ride alpha kangaroos. That's funny. I used to tell people, whenever I holidayed and stuff, right, that I had a job back home. I was a poker. My job was to walk along the harbour bridge, right, wearing this big, thick, heavy metal belt that held sort of like you see here in America, the flag bearer when he's marching in a marching band, right? I had it fucking down to an art, right? I'd have this big, thick metal pole, and I walked across the harbour bridge poking the koalas off. And you would be surprised how many fucking people believed me. I had this one chick when I was in where was that part? Moshi in Tanzania, right? A town just at the bottom of Mount Kilimanjaro in Tanzania, in Africa. And she was about to do the climb. I was working at an orphanage, and we were at the bar, and we were talking about different parts of the world we'd been to, and she was asking about Australia and stuff. And I told her that and she was like, I've never even seen a picture of a koala on the harbour bridge. And I was like, thanks, babe. That's me and my mates. We're doing our job properly then. That's sick. And no shit, I had this bitch going for a week and a half that was my job back home in Australia. I was a poker. I walked along the harbour bridge poking off koalas. But maybe the aliens took her down under, probed her with a kangaroo foot. Lol. This is the most enjoyable live stream I've watched in a long time. Well, thanks, Xander. That means a lot, mate. Thank you. No dickheads in chat and interesting topics. A kangaroo could easily beat up Joe Biden. Bernie would scare it into submission with his gruff voice. Kangaroo would easily beat up every one of those candidates. Kangaroos are fucking gnarly, man. And they've got big fuck off claws on their back feet. They'll lean back on their tail and then kick the fuck out of you with their velociraptor feet. It's fucked. They're scary as fuck. My battery is running low. I've got a critical thing now, so if I stop talking at any point, it's because I've run out of time. But Bloomberg could buy camels. Go and watch that video. Sanders is in the front. I'm going to scroll all the way down and just get to the final comments. Where am I? So you're going at a good price if you pass the background check. 1943. I think, if you shut off that lamp, it might help the camera focus. That's a good idea. Sorry about that. We were facing the other way before. That's my bad. The Puckle gun and the Ferguson rifle were both high-capacity repeaters invented years before the Revolutionary War. They didn't just have the muskets. That's a common misconception. Fair enough. The average troop used muskets during the Revolution, though. Repeating rifles weren't common until after the Constitution was ratified. Also a good point. Yes, but I was just saying they were well aware of them, and I don't believe they were stupid enough to think firearm tech would not evolve further, although I don't think they'd ever guess how much. Fair, they knew tech was advancing. Yeah, that's fair. I'll give you that as well. And there were all sorts of different military arrangements that you could make so that one person was shooting while the other was reloading, so that it was effectively automatic anyway at that time. I know that. But obviously they'd never envisioned drone strikes and atom bombs exactly. We tried tactical hot air balloons in the Civil War. Lol, we've come on. Fucking wow. Did you really? That's interesting. I was raised on the Seneca Nation reservation, dude, only about an hour south of Buffalo. That's fucking cool, man. I'd love to fucking check that out sometime and learn more about Native American history from Native Americans as opposed to fucking history books written by white people telling me the story of that. You know what I mean? I'd really like to hear that sort of thing. So if you've got any connections on that reservation that I would be able to have a chat with, hit me up, on Instagram or Facebook. Send me a message. That'd be sick. From hot air balloons to zeppelins to bombers in 200 years. I'll cross the lakes for a meetup. Fuck yeah. Pennsylvania. Yup. Mad. Pennsylvania is PA, but I was raised in New York. Nice. Moved to PA like 25 years ago. You can run for governor or senator. Yeah, that's it. He was governor. You got my vote. Tats are cool. Thanks. Lol, koala poker. Hi, kitty. All right. So I'm now on 2% battery, if that, and I'm going to sign off now. This has been a real fucking long one, nearly 3 hours. Long story short, the debate was interesting. I think it was probably won by Warren or Buttigieg. Buttigieg is a rat-faced, smug-looking cunt, though, so I hope that Warren gets the plaudits for it, if any plaudits are to be given out. I'm a Sanders fan, more broadly speaking. I think the debate tonight, he didn't perform as well as he could have. I think Bloomberg's a bit of a scumbag, and he just further proves that he was a scumbag and is a scumbag in this debate. I think Klobuchar's next to go. And yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Thank you very much, Xander and CJ and Lance and Babe, Shannon, anyone. Thank you, everyone. Rad J as well. I'm scrolling up trying to see more names and stuff. You're all cool. You're all cool. I just did it. You know that meme of thanking people and stuff? In my head, I just did a thanks, CJ. Thanks, Lance. Thanks, Rad J. Thanks, Xander. Thanks, Shannon. Not you, Tony Macaroni. Thanks, this person. Thanks, this person. Thanks, this person. But yeah, you missed Butterfield's stream for this. That's mad. That is the biggest fucking compliment I can receive, that you didn't watch a Butterfield stream and you did watch mine. Thank you very much. I'm a fan of Isaac Butterfield. I don't think we agree on lots of stuff, but I think he's a fucking funny cunt. So yeah, that's cool. Good to know. Go and watch that now because he's cool. I don't want to steal one of his views. Don't actually. Go to bed. It's 2 a.m. I'll see you later. Thanks for watching. Yeah, I'll see you when I look at you. You'll see me when you look at me. All of that sort of stuff. Go join my Patreon. Go like my page. Go watch the John Horrocks video in my live stream. Not in my live stream, in my history playlist. Do all the things that I usually say to do. Help me out. That'd be sick. Bye. Bye.